Working in harmony with nature. We want to use natural products whenever we can, but enhance that. A lot of times we want those natural occurring organisms to work faster than they would naturally, so we do things with biostimulants and et cetera to speed them up. We want to use products that do no harm or minimal harm. Some of the products that we will recommend will be a little salty. Some of them, if overused, can do some harm, so we need to keep that matched to the buffering ability of your soil. If you've got a real low organic matter soil, we need to be more careful with some of those products versus if you don't. If you're under 2% organic matter, we would consider that a little bit of a fragile soil. We need to be obviously a lot more careful with a 2% versus if you're Stan Vanderkoy in Minnesota with a 7% out there. So yeah, you get away with a lot more evil stuff that way. So we need to be careful to match the product to the soil to make sure that we can keep the natural cycles in the soil working for us. So we want to minimize or manage those harsh products. We want to stimulate and build soil biological communities. A lot of products on the market today are single or dual strain. They have a couple bacteria, they have a couple fungi. We've realized for many years that we need a community. We need the bacteria, the fungi, the algae, the protozoas, the beneficial nematodes, all working together for us. So you've probably heard that term from some folks talking about the soil food web. That's very important. You need a community impact, a community effect. That's when we see the best success. We want to manage the base saturation. What's your ratio of your calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium? We're not going to suggest that there's an exact ratio, an exact number that's correct, but you need to be close. Depending on what problems you're dealing with, some of those adjustments may need to be made and can be made. We want to constantly work at maintaining or improving pore space, the tilth of the soil, that coffee ground structure at the surface. That will be hammered on all day. That is critical. We have to have adequate pore space. We have to have tilth. And we get that by managing the residue. If you've got a lot of wheat straw out there or corn stalks out there, there's an opportunity to use those resources to accomplish what we're talking about, make that soil healthier, make for a healthier crop. And ultimately manage carbon, whether that carbon's coming to you from residues or whether that carbon's coming as root exudates. For most of us, the largest quantity of carbon we're dealing with is actually coming from those root exudates. It's big, it's a big number. I won't read it to you, but that was established many years ago, but we're all about trying to do things natural, do things healthy. You want to benefit your soil, your crop, your livestock, the community, and the people with the food. We value our value statement. We value the environment. The environment obviously is critical. It's very important. We need to be careful of our water and our soil resources. We don't want to be a polluter out there. We want to help that. We want to clean it up, perhaps, or maintain our farms at a very healthy, static level. We value quality, whether that be quality of your soil, quality of your crop, quality of life. Quality is an issue. We value health. Again, healthier soil, healthier livestock, healthier family, health of our communities. We value knowledge and wisdom. We want to acknowledge science and use sound science. And we also want to acknowledge the wisdom of those that came before us and have something to share from all of their experience. We value our reputation. We value profitability, profitability for you, the farm, as well as us. We all have to be sustainable so we can continue to do what we do. So how did we get here? And Dave's story as to how he created a problem and then worked his way back through it. So Dave Larson, our founder, believed that he caused many decades of soil degradation in less than 5 years. And as we get through the story, you'll understand what we're talking about. His goal was to balance the soil's cation exchange capacity immediately and provide all the needed nitrogen to maximize the yields. At this time, this would have been late 70s, early 80s, there were some growers growing 300 plus bushel corn. He thought if he could boost his yield significantly, that he could reduce his cost per bushel in order to purchase land and do what he needed to do and be more profitable. So his plan came to his opinion, and he was a very educated man, very smart man. If you know him, you know that's true. He decided he needed water. So often, many years, irrigation or water was a limiting factor. So he put an irrigation on his home farm. It was called a muscatine silt loam at that time. Today it's a muscatoon silt loam. But added water so he could keep the water perfect. He increased the potash. He'd been using 200 to 250 pounds of muriate of potash per acre per year, which was considerably more than was common in that time on those soils, but he boosted that. Went to the 400 to 600 range, put on plenty of nitrogen, as anhydrous ammonia, 250 to 350 pounds, and he did move the yields up. He went from 164 to 200. He always ran a variety plot there on his home farm. His top variety made 226. So he did move the yield up, but 80% of the corn was lodged. So he had standability problems, stalk problems. And stalk problems always relate to potassium, right? Maybe not. So his plan, after gathering some more expert recommendations, they said you must balance your CEC. You have to get that potassium correct. I believe they're shooting for like 8% or something like that. This is where they said he had to be in order to grow the 300 plus bushel corn. So after 14 years of 225 pounds and 2 years at 500 pounds, they said you need to put on 966 pounds of potash per acre. Need 300 pounds of diammonium phosphate, and then they made the decision to run 250 pounds of nitrogen as ammonia and put another 150 or another 100 pounds of liquid nitrogen through the irrigator for his 350. So what's the results after doing that? In his variety plot, all the ears were 7 foot off the ground. So he had very, very rapid vegetative growth. Ear placement was very high. Did have massive roots, but they were only 2.5 inches deep. He said the soil felt like concrete, so the ground got very, very hard. Had massive aphid population. He told the story of aphids piling on his corn head and rolling down through the corn rolls. So he had lots of insect pressure. He was always big on tiling. He now had ponding over his tile lines. Had to harvest the corn at 30% moisture due to severe lodging. In that day, the technique was the moldboard plow. The same plow, same tractor, he had to run a full gear slower, pulling the plow through the fields. And we've lost the pictures, but I know years ago he had a picture showing on this muscatine silt loam, which is a very, very good soil, and it had good tilth. But by this time, when he was plowing, he had ribbons from one end of the farm to the other coming off the plow. So he really firmed the soil up and gotten hard. So by year 4, his yield was back down to 169 bushels per acre, was just 5 bushel better per acre than when he started this high yield program. So sometimes we hit forks in the road, sometimes we hit roadblocks. By this time, Dave was realizing that his goal wasn't going to be made. The plan wasn't right. He'd hit a roadblock. We're going to have to back up and start over and figure something out. So he traveled with a friend around the Midwest that next fall, talking to any experts that they could find that would talk about high yield corn. As I recall, they hit several universities, they hit John Deere, they hit a lot of folks on a quick tour through the Midwest. He's got a file that he talked to Herman Warsaw at Saybrook, Illinois, here in central Illinois. And in '75, Herman had 338 bushel corn. A few years after that, he was in the 380s. So Dave knew it could be done. He knew that there was somebody growing this corn over 300. His aha moment was meeting Dr. Dan Scow and then Dr. Kerry Reams. They were talking about, and Kerry Reams had come up with this biological theory of ionization. So it's very scientific, it's science, but it's a little different. If you've ever read any of that or familiar with it, he looks at the energy and the nutrients in a little different way. And for Dave, it was making sense that what he was doing wasn't right, because per the biological theory of ionization, he was taking some things the wrong way, using some of the wrong products. So it's science from a different perspective. He also learned the soil is supposed to be alive. At that time, Dave would have acknowledged he thought the soil was something to hold the plant up. It was a place to put fertilizer. And he learned that it was supposed to be alive, and that was kind of a life-changing moment for him, and then later on those that he would help and work with. So he learned about the energy principles and how to work with living soils. What came out of that was the 3 key principles of managing soil biologically that you'll hear throughout the day. Air and water space, or pore space, we must manage that. If you're putting products on like he did and destroying the tilth and making that soil structure go away and compact the soil, you're not going to get the job done. Things are going to change in a bad way. We need to manage the residue. Where he was running the moldboard plow, he was burying the residue, putting it deep enough that it wouldn't decompose aerobically. It was fermenting and rotting and then producing negative compounds that plant roots won't grow through, they'll grow away from. So that had to change. He switched to incorporating the residue into the aerobic zone. Nutrient application, switched away from anhydrous ammonia, went to less harsh nitrogen sources, the UANs, the urea, ammonium nitrates, and broke up some of the applications. Again, if you have to use something harsh, spoon feed it, break it up. Obviously, he moved away from using 1,000 pounds of graded potash breaker. So with these 3 principles, Dave saw his soils improve, the tilth came back. He changed his management. Rather than just look at pH to decide whether they had calcium, he was looking at the base saturation and studying whether that calcium was available, realizing now that the calcium is important to the health of the crop. It's not used just to adjust pH, change the tillage, change the form of nutrients. And he found that biologicals work. There were some biologicals on the market at this time. Most of them were recommended to be used in ounces per acre. He found that if he used them at gallons per acre, he was able to make some differences and improve the soil. So he became convinced that he was going to have biologicals that were cheap enough to put on enough to make a difference. So he restored the pore space in the soil. He brought the tilth back. The soil came back to life, got the tilth improved. By then, with the prompting of Jerry Carlson, with Pro Farmer, he encouraged Dave to tell his story on how he messed up the soil and brought it back, because there's other farmers that were looking to improve soils as well. So Dave started speaking at seminars, and AgriEnergy started to be something in the back of the mind. So he ended up being asked to advise the farmers and consultants, particularly around the Midwest. In 1990, AgriEnergy Resources was officially founded. So just kind of a timeline on how we've evolved. So in '82, Dave was trialing a lot of different biologicals and biostimulants. Some of those were on the farms that my family was farming, but we did see some differences. 1983, in the year of the drought, we did see some significant differences in strip trials where we were using some biology. So they made a difference. 1988, Dave started marketing fertility products. Had a couple folks that he met through the Pro Farmers seminars that encouraged him, help us find these products, help us put them together, we'll find the customers, let's make a difference out there in the communities. 1988, set up a soil lab in his basement of his home. 1990, started doing business as AgriEnergy Resources. 1990, decided he needed to make some bios so that he could have them cheap enough so that his customers could use enough to make a difference. Again, not ounces per acre, but get enough out there to change the soil. 1990, built the new soil lab in the building next to the office. And Gary was on site by then, is that right? What year did you come in?
89.
89, so Gary was there in 89 so he transitioned from Dave's basement, the soil lab, up to the soil lab that they set up in the shed. 1994, set up microbiology lab. I think I've got that date close, I'm not positive on that. 1996, just overnight, we lost Dave. Passed away February 96. Carolyn's brother, Paula Ailey, ultimately ended up buying the company, he and his family. And at that time, we didn't know how it would go by losing our founder and the person that ran the company and always put it, literally build it, put it together, but the business continued to survive and thrive. We carried on with what was going on with the dealers and the customers, and we got through it. It was a tough time, but we got through that. I'm calling it 2015, but the Ailey family in that time knew that long-term we needed to make a change. We believed that we needed to partner up with a larger company that would have more resources, particularly for research and development. So we were on the watch for a company that would blend in with us and that we could grow with. December of 2018, AgriEnergy Resources was sold to Douglas Products, and they consolidated us along with Growth Products out of New York and GPS Solutions out of Florida. So we had 3 companies put together that were all kind of similar with the approaches of what we were doing. By June of 2020, Douglas decided we need to form a buyer's group for our dealers and customer base. They were looking to sell to large national companies and thought it was going to be a conflict if they're trying to sell to national companies that were trying to sell to the same farmer base that we were. So they decided that this buyer's group would be put together. So December 2020, AgriEnergy Solutions, we were Resources, now we're Solutions, was formed with 4 of us in a rented office there in Princeton. So January 1, 2021, AgriEnergy Solutions was officially in business. By mid-2021, we realized that DPH was going to get out of the fertilizer business. They didn't want to be blending the products that our customers really depended on. So we started to search for other facilities that we could cooperate with somehow, buy, build, whatever. We're looking at anything and everything. So we looked at least 19 facilities over about an 18-month period. 2 or 3 had serious possibilities. My TGFP is thank God for patience. Real glad we didn't jump on some of them that wouldn't have been as good. But then in April 2023, with this guy over here, started talking with Dan Goodman at Early Bird Feed and Fertilizer down here at Goodfield, and things finally fell into place for us. So we're very thankful on how all that happened. All that happened there. So that's an overshot of the Early Bird facility. Dan's going to show us more and share with us kind of the direction we're headed. And again, thank you to all of you that really wanted to come out and spend some time with us.
Okay, thanks, Dean. Appreciate it. So I'm Dan Goodman, and I'm with Early Bird Feed and Fertilizer, and some of you know us being here local, and some of you maybe aren't familiar with us. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of who we are, where we came from, some of our core beliefs and values, and then how we're going to work with AgriEnergy to be the storage, blending, manufacturing facility to support their customers and dealers both. So try to give that overview for you. This is our location just down the road in Goodfield. We have fertilizer and feed manufacturing on site there in Goodfield. Our core beliefs and values. Number 1 is faith. My father started the business 56 years ago, and I think that we start with faith because it's really important for us as individuals, and we want to instill that in our employees and our customers, that comes first for us in our daily toil. So faith, family, really important. I got to work in the corporate environment for a little bit. I'll go through that, and I'm really thankful that I can work in a place where faith and family are at the top of the list when it comes to our work. Integrity is really important in a fertilizer business. I mean, my father taught me that you can't tell what's coming out of the back of a sprayer or a spreader. You have to trust the people that you're buying it from and that are applying it for you, that they're doing it right. So integrity is really, really important when it comes to fertilizer, chemicals, amendments, biology. You can't tell what's in the jug, right? So you got to trust the people that you're buying it from. Service and excellence are something that we built the business on, and it's seasonal work, it's hard work, but it's very fulfilling. I don't think I'd want to be involved in anything else. So we are split into 2 divisions. Our Early Bird Nutrition is our feed division, and Early Bird Agronomy is what we're talking about here with AgriEnergy and supporting them. So we do have 2 divisions. We're located right here between Peoria and Bloomington on Interstate 74. A little bit about myself. I was born into the business. My father started it 56 years ago. I think this is the closest picture we could find to his first application, post-merger application machine. I think it's called a Han. Is that right, Dad? A Han sprayer? He got to ride it like a motorcycle with the with the chain drive right there between his legs, and the engine sitting right on top of the engine, spraying the first pesticides that were available to manage some pests and weeds and stuff. So this is kind of a representation of the very first spreader that we had. Spread and dry fertilizer is how it started. When I started working at the plant before I could drive. He needed help checking bills, so he put me in an office checking bills. But as soon as I could drive, I was put on a John Deere 6000 to spray. I wasn't the best applicator. I can barely move them around a lot today. Thank goodness we got some really good young applicators that understand machinery, but it was never my forte. But the best I can do is get them out of the way if I got to get a load out real early in the morning and nobody's there to move it for me. So I went to the University of Illinois to study agronomy, plant and soil science. Graduated and had the opportunity to go work for a company called SEBA in northeast Nebraska. And in Nebraska, I found out there's a difference between dry land and irrigated. You know, so a Midwesterner, I just thought the good Lord gave you enough rain and you just worked with it, right? But out in Nebraska, I was introduced to irrigation for the first time. Went through a SEBA-Sandoz merger and came out of that as Novartis and was able to go to Idaho. Spent some time in Idaho as a tech rep out there covering the Pacific Northwest. 72 different crops grown in the Treasure Valley of Idaho. So man, no one can be an expert on 72 different crops. So it was the first time I was experienced in going into dealerships, calling on distributors where they had fieldmen that were potato specialists and sugar beet specialists and some of the tree crops and vine crops that the permanent crops that were grown out there. So very, very interesting. Enjoyed my time out there. We acquired Merck at the time. So abamectin came on board to Novartis at the time that I was out there, went through another merger. And then the last merger I got to go through was the Novartis-Zeneca merger, and we exited that as Syngenta. So at this point in my career, I was in Kentucky and Indiana, and was starting to figure out that the corporate world, maybe with all those moves and all those changes, maybe wasn't the best place for me long term. And we had just started my wife and I had just started our family, and was really blessed to be able to come back to the family-owned business here in Goodfield. So really appreciate that opportunity. When I got back, things looked a little different as far as applicators go. Like I said, thankful that we have a crew that is talented in that application space, because it truly is a skill and an art to be able to drive these machines all day and do a great job, which they do. This is what we look like from the road. Again, some of you are familiar with it, so I apologize for showing you something you already know, but for the people that don't know us, this is our location. We started on 7 acres and we've had to grow on 7 acres. We haven't really picked up, so there's kind of lean-tos on top of lean-tos. You know, you grow and you stick a lean-to on something, and then you outgrow that and you stick a lean-to on the lean-to. We have a feed mill there. We have the hoop storage where we can hold a couple of barges of fertilizer and a little bit down the middle. The tank farm we're going to talk about, because that's the space we're creating for AgriEnergy. We have an on-site shop, and there's an organic elevator across the road. So as things change, you know, that's been an eye-opener for us too, as our customers have transitioned to some organic acres, and we've had to adjust in order to meet their desires and needs. So we are a liquid fertilizer plant. We manufacture liquid fertilizer on site. There is an anhydrous ammonia tank. It's just right there. This anhydrous ammonia tank, we don't even have the capability of filling tanks. We don't really recommend a lot of direct applied anhydrous ammonia. That anhydrous ammonia is there for reaction in the fertilizer mixing vessel to react phosphoric acid with anhydrous. So that's really the only reason we have anhydrous on our fertilizer lot, is to react with phosphoric acid. Real quick, just to give you an overview of our nutrition, our feed sales. We've got a great team of nutrition experts, feed salespeople, manufacturing facilities. We really specialize in show feed, whether it's show cattle, show hogs, goats, lambs. Kind of the specialty feeds is where we found our niche to survive in the feed industry. We make our own brand of show feeds, but we do handle a lot of other brands. So one of our strengths is our salespeople can go on the farm, solve solutions, and they have all these different brands to pick from. We're not telling them you have to sell Early Bird, you have to sell Show Right or Sunglow. If there's an Umbarger product or a Hubbard product or a Rival or a Linder product that fits better, then they can sell those products. And that kind of bleeds over into our agronomy too. We feel that way about our agronomy recommendations. We're not here to just sell you potash and DAP. We really want to look at your soil test, fix the pH first and foremost, talk about calcium, talk about the macro and micronutrients, and then I think part of the reason we're partnering with AgriEnergy is we want to talk to them about biology. And we want to do a blend of both that conventional thought, because I think there's some good thoughts in there, if done right, but we need experts on biology, and that's where AgriEnergy, I think, brings a really valuable resource to us. If you're in the show circuit, you've probably heard of us, hopefully, but we get around, I think we sell feed in around 27 different states. And if you're at the state, whether it's a state fair or, you know, showing is a year-round sport now that the youth are involved in. So there's, every weekend you can go show pigs or cattle or something if you want to keep busy. But we've had a lot of success, and that's just a function of our, not only the quality and freshness of our feed and the specific formulations for show, but our people that make really good recommendations. It's louder than I thought it'd be, but this is kind of, I just put this in there because it's symbolic of how Early Bird attacks problems, you know. How do you get a lot of molasses onto a feed? People want to sell you maybe a molasses blender that's got load cells on it, it's connected to a computer, and you know, it's supposed to be the best way ever to apply molasses. We thought that measuring it out volumetrically and applying it to the feed only as it enters the horizontal blender and then disperses in the blender, we thought was a great way to do it. Simpler maybe than some other things out there, but very highly effective. So that's, I think, is a great example of how we tackle problems. Our mills are kind of a niche mill. It's not a huge blend tower. If you're feeding millions of pigs or chickens or turkeys, you probably got a feed mill that's designed to put out semi-load after semi-load after semi-load of the exact same blend. That's not necessarily what ours are. We're more of a boutique mill or a niche mill where we can make small batches with lots and lots of ingredients. And a lot of times the ingredients are things people don't want to handle, like sugar beet shreds and cottonseed hulls, so things that are fluffy, corn cobs, ground up corn cobs. They're hard to handle, but in the show arena, they fill the animal out correctly, and they give the look that's desired by the judge in order to win the show. We expanded in Western Illinois, a town called Roseville. We built a small mill there, and have a small mill in Roseville, Illinois. We also expanded west of Jacksonville. We have a mill in Chapin, same type of mill in Western Illinois, in Chapin, Illinois. We had a need for pelleted feed, so we found a small pellet mill in Farmersville, Illinois that we run. And then we've also got a location in Utica coming. We're going to build a small warehouse here on a plot of land. So in most cases where we've expanded, there's been cooperatives or mainly cooperatives that have gotten out of the feed business. They just don't want to be in it anymore. So we've taken that existing business and grown it when we expanded. On the agronomy side, I just want to run through really quickly kind of our core philosophies, because I think they marry really well with some of the philosophies of AgriEnergy, and you can hopefully see why there's such, I think, a good partnership and a synergism between the two organizations. So we have fertilizer, crop protection, seed, and aerial, and I really kind of, the foundations of Early Bird's fertility recommendations kind of are based on what Ralph Goodman and Ron Wiegand, the way they kind of looked at things as they started the business and grew the business. So what's interesting is I had a conversation with my father, so we had this same meeting in Richmond, Indiana on Tuesday, and I sat down with him in his office yesterday and I said, you really should come and listen to the story of AgriEnergy and how it started, and talked to Herman in Warsaw, and you know, and he applied all this and didn't get what he wanted and looked at biology, and I said, it's really interesting. He said, and my father Ralph yesterday says, yeah, well, when I talked to Herman in Warsaw, I kind of got the same thing. I said, wait a second, you talked to Herman in Warsaw? He's like, yeah, oh yeah, I saw them, and dinner or lunch, and he said he told me about the biology he was trying to create on the farm and with the residue. And he said, Ralph, he said, I chop the corn stalks, and if they're not the right size, I go out and I chop them again. And if they're still not the right size, I chop them a third time. And he says, just like the coffee you're drinking there, if you put a cube of sugar in there versus powdered sugar, which one's going to melt first? So he was trying to create that biology with all this corn residue. And so this is kind of, again, it was interesting. I called Dean and told him that story, and it's kind of interesting that we had our paths kind of crossed a long time ago. But that's why I think our foundations of our recommendations are so similar. So another thing that my father always told me is that he started it with dry fertilizer, but he just could not figure it out. And if you have ever truly tried to pan test a blend of dry fertilizer coming out of the back of a spreader, and you've ever been satisfied with it, talk to me after the meeting, because I need to know the secret. And then you start doing the math as you're standing out there looking at these pans, trying to figure out how the world you're going to get it accurate. And then you start doing the math that this blend costs $700 a ton. Let's run the spreader one more time over these pans, and then run the spreader one more time over these pans, and it is the most frustrating thing. And I can understand where he was at back in the early 70s, late 60s, trying to figure this out. Because physics do not allow a ping pong ball and a golf ball to be thrown the same distance when the same force is applied. It's physically impossible. So the point where he got to, where he decided there had to be a better way, was he had blended a buggy full of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium for top dressing wheat. And he pulled it out, he blended it himself, he mixed it himself, he mixed it at the appropriate time, he loaded it into a buggy, and he pulled it out to the field. And about a half hour later, the customer called and said, Ralph, the buggy, the wheel fell off. It's not running. He said, okay, I'll be right out. He pulled a brand new buggy out there, emptied it right up against it, and he started shoveling it off into the other buggy. And he shoveled through nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Nitrogen, phosphorus. He shoveled the whole thing over, and he said, there is no way this is going to be right for this customer. I did everything I was supposed to, and from the time I pulled it out there, bouncing across the road to this guy who was a local, you didn't pull it very far, did you, Dad? 10 miles? And it had separated. And so that's when we started looking at other ways to apply nutrients in a uniform fashion. So today we use suspension fertilizers. And suspension fertilizers truly are a dry fertilizer. It's dry fertilizer suspended in a liquid form. So there's nothing magical about that. Just because it's liquid, boy, that's why it's going to be better for your farm. It's going to be better for your farm because every drop's the same analysis, and we can do really cool things like band it. So we band liquid suspension fertilizers on 30-inch centers, and we create a zone of fertility in the soil that prevents phosphorus and potassium from being tied up. That's how we think we can do it different and better. So we create this zone of really high concentrated nutrients. The reason we recommend starter fertilizers, because starter fertilizer, whether it be in furrow or some other spot, is the bridge between early nutrition and later season nutrition. So starter fertilizer, we think, can feed a young plant the nutrients that it needs in a very efficient form. And then this band that we've placed out here the fall before can feed the plant for the rest of the year. So that's kind of our philosophy on fertility. What I'm really excited about is we always knew this part was also important, but we never had really good solutions, and I don't think we had the comfort to recommend the biological part of the equation. And with some of our customers transitioning to organic, and Eric Wiegand is here with us today too. Eric is Ron's son, so Ron's been with us for 50 plus years, almost 55 now. So you get the second generation of myself and Eric, both of our fathers, started and built the business to where it is and kind of instilled those base principles in us. So we really think that it was an eye-opener for us when our customers transitioned to organic. We had the choice of either trying to find something to sell them and help them with, to increase their production, or go find a new acre to sell our conventional fertilizer and pesticides on. And we opted to try to find something that we could learn with them, recommend to them, increase their productivity and their profitability. And I think this is where AgriEnergy is really going to help us, is how can we get the maximum amount of bacteria, really long word that really is just almost a single cell organism, fungi, 5,000 pounds, protozoa, 200 pounds, algae. How can we get the maximum amount of life in the soil? What things can we do? You know, we focused on trying to get the pH right. We focused on trying to get the nutrients that we already had. But like Dean said, what if we could make it even better than what would naturally occur? What if we could add some amendments, add some actual biology to the soil to really take that to the next step? So for us, when we do an organic plot, you know, our top variety, I think 2 years ago, Eric, was it 285? 278?
Somewhere close to that.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, our organic variety plot, the top number was 278. We have a lot of conventional farmers that are doing a really great job, and their whole farm, they have fields that have averaged 280 plus. But it's interesting to me that the guy that can use no conventional methods gets about the same number as the guy that uses all conventional methods. And so suddenly we think, man, the combination of the two is really where the secret lies. Really where we're going to take the next step in productivity and profitability is when we take the best of both worlds. And I know that some are going to operate only in the organic side, that's fine. There's economic incentive to do that, we want to help you do it. There'll be some that are resistant to change and only want to operate in the commercial side with traditional chemistries and nutrients, that's fine. We'll make the best recommendations we can. But for those who are really looking for the next step, I think the blend of those two, taking the best of both worlds, is going to get us to those higher yields that are going to be required to really stay in business in a really competitive commodity market. One thing we think lime is really important. A lot of dealers, I'm shocked when we pick up new customers that the lime is so out of whack, that the calcium is so out of whack. But really the reason is people don't make much money on lime. It's expensive to handle, it takes a big crew, there's not a lot of revenue. So a lot of fertilizer dealers don't talk to you about lime. It's not really important. What you really need is DAP and potash. You know, the stuff I make money on, that's what you really need. But lime, again, my father and Eric's father, Ron, the first thing he told us is always tell the farmer the first money spent should be on getting his pH correct and then selling fertilizer. Because you can sell all the fertilizer in the world, and if his pH isn't right, it's not gonna be very efficient. It's not the right thing to do. And so we focus on lime. We like liming every 2 years. Some people like every 4 years and go out there and let the pH go down and then pour on a mountain of lime every 4 years. We really like to keep that pH as close to what we think is perfect for our area as 6-8. And we think every 2 years is an ideal way to manage that lime. And liming is not that hard. It's kind of a math equation. So why wait 4 years and have a test show up that all of a sudden you have to spring into action to quote unquote fix it? We know that the nitrogen we apply reduces or increases the amount of lime, and we can do a math equation. We kind of know based on the parent material of the soil and the natural weathering what the pH is going to do. So be proactive when you apply lime, not reactive when you get your report card and be like, man, I really got to fix this. I'm getting an F in that class, got to fix that. You knew it was coming. Let's be more proactive. So how's this going to work with Early Bird and AgriEnergy? I just want to give a quick overview of that. We have some what we call them our horizontals, but these are fiberglass lined beer tanks. There used to be a big Pabst Blue Ribbon brewery in Peoria. As a young kid, you come down the hill into Peoria, you could smell the brewery, you could smell the fermenting corn. That's gone nowadays, but when that brewery closed, we purchased their beer tanks that they stored beer in. They were glass lined. So we have 6 of them that are horizontal. We've cut them open, got inside of them, sandblasted them clean, and we're going to set those up as verticals, and that's going to create the dike space we need for the AgriEnergy products. So not only those 6, but we've got some poly tanks that are available, a couple of tanks here that are available for AgriEnergy products. And then we're going to increase our starter line to accommodate some starters, some low salt starters that AgriEnergy really wants to have at their disposal. So we're going to set these tanks up. They're getting ready to get set up next week, I think. Create that dyke space, create a loadout for the 6 or 7 AgriEnergy trailers that are going to be loaded, compartment trailers that we're going to be able to lid and load for them. And we'll have the products like the fish and the humics and all the products, many of the products that you're used to ordering through AgriEnergy, you'll have access to through AgriEnergy at our facility. So that's kind of the plan. I don't know why I throw this in the end. We do have a fertilizer plant in Missouri. You know, life's all about people. It's not the facility that is why we have customers. The reason we have customers is because of our people. And it was just an opportunity. I met Jerry Steiger in Idaho when I worked with Novartis out there. And he was raised on a dairy farm in Springfield, Missouri. He went to work for Scott's company, calling on Walmart, and then Walmart grabbed him. He ended up as the CFO of Walmart Automotive. And his last job at Walmart was in their AI tech. So they were trying to anticipate when you walked in what you were going to buy before you got there. So weird why they want to know that. But really smart guy, degree in chemistry and agronomy. And his wife called me and said, "You got to get Jerry out of the corporate office. It's killing him. We have 3 young girls. We want to get back home to the dairy farm. Our parents are both from there. Can we work something out?" And we worked something out where we found a fertilizer plant in southwest Missouri. It's a dry fertilizer plant, so we're not doing it quite the same way we wanted to, but we'll get there eventually. But if you're ever in that neck of the woods, Jerry is a really, really interesting individual, smart, hard worker, and so that's why we're in southwest Missouri. So appreciate it. Real quick overview. Hopefully it didn't take too much time, but that's why we're partnering with AgriEnergy. We really look forward to this spring. And being busy filling trucks and supplying you with the products that you need. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan. We're going to take a break here in a few minutes, but want to introduce a few folks first. And we've got a number of dealers of ours with AgriEnergy that are here today. And I'll just point them out to you, and then you can wave your hand. We've got Tom and Linda Biesecker from Greenville, Ohio, Western Ohio. We've got Stan Vanderkoy from Buffalo, Minnesota. I think he gets the prize for coming the farthest. And actually, see, in Minnesota, there isn't hardly any snow. So you had to come down here to see snow. So Reggie Destry is an organic consultant, independent, that has just worked with us for many, many years from Madison, Wisconsin, and then spends a good chunk of time in Arizona too, I think. So you picked the right time of the year to stay up here. Yes. Let's see. Down here we got Derek Davis from Missouri, forget the town, Marshall, Missouri, so south or west central Missouri. Also want to mention that when AgriEnergy was formed, AgriEnergy Solutions, as an LLC, we have a board that helps us out in a lot of ways. And both Derek, and then also Greg Musselman up here, wave your hand, Greg, helps serve on our board. And then Galen Nisley, where's Galen? Galen was right there, yeah. He's also on our board currently too. Another dealer, John Troyer, and Joe Summers. Yeah, John said he's the retired dealer, but he's still here, isn't he? So, they're from Kentucky and Tennessee. Yep. Let's see, who else we got? Wave your hand if I'm missing you. Over here, Brent here. Palmyra, Missouri, across the river. Over here, Dave Wietrich. Originally Rensselaer, Indiana, Northwest Indiana, and now they bought a cabin in Tennessee, so I think he actually might live in Tennessee, but yeah. And back here, Eric Johnston, our neighbor in Princeton, Illinois. In the very back, Monty Thompson, who also helps us a lot, from Stratford, Texas. So he might actually beat Stan as coming the farthest to get here, so Panhandle of Texas. And then I failed to mention Clint Wietrich in the very front, son of Dave Wietrich, is in Greenfield, Indiana. He is on our staff as well as is a dealer in that area east of Indianapolis. Galen, I asked for earlier, and he wasn't sitting down, but he's back here. Galen Nisley with Honeyville Feed, and they are in Topeka, Honeyville, Indiana, and northern Indiana. So we really appreciate all our dealers and glad that they could be here today. Also want to let some vendors introduce themselves. And we always appreciate having other folks here that are of like mind and offer some other products that aren't always things that we carry or get involved in ourselves, but they really fit with what we do and we think add to what farmers can do. So I'll let Brian introduce himself.
Yep. Thanks, Gary. Good to be here. It's been a while since I've been to the AgriEnergy meeting. So I'm Brian Newland. I work for Salavute Ag. We have cover crops and forage seed. Our cover crops are under the biotip.
We talked about early bird and kind of trying to find solutions and trying to find ways, unique ways of doing things. What I have in my hand right here is a suspension fertilizer, but it's an organic suspension fertilizer, and it contains clover seed. So we've actually used the same technology that we suspend phosphorus and potassium. We use that same technology to suspend clover seed. This is something we can put through our floaters and frost seed for you in a broadcast application. And so what the ingredients are water, adipolgite clay, there's some molasses in here, organic molasses, OMRI certified organic molasses. The adipolgite clay is a mined product that carries an OMRI certificate, and clover seed. So we apply about 50 gallons to the acre of this suspension, and you'll get about 15 pounds of clover seed with that. So really unique solution for getting a really even spread on clover seed, frost seeded in the early spring on frozen ground. And you'll see this, it is truly a suspension. It doesn't last forever. As it sits up here, you'll see that it will fall out, but if you shake it up or just agitate it a little bit, you'll be able to see that clover seed suspended inside of there. Technology is we shear the clay, so adipolgite clay is a shearable clay. And if you put it through an eductor and apply horsepower to it, if you looked under a microscope, that clay would actually be sheared and look like straw. It would look like little strands of straw. And so those microscopic sheared clay is what that clover is sitting on when you look at this suspension fertilizer. So something really unique to kind of think about solutions and ways to solve problems as we go on to the next part of the conversation here. Appreciate it.
Give the mic to Dean.
Do you sell out there as well?
Yes. Yeah, we make a liquid line product at Early Bird too. So that's a suspension of 200 mesh line. 50% of that liquid line is 200 mesh line. 50% of it is clay and water. So it's a great way to seed alfalfa. Timothy is the one grass we can put through there because of the density of the smallness of the seed. But a great way to seed alfalfa, clover, Timothy, is to put it in suspension fertilizer, liquid line, or this special custom suspension.
And biologicals.
Biologicals would be great in there. See, that's why we're forming this partnership, so we can learn how to make it better.
Thanks, Dan. So many neat, innovative things they've done here. Next up, we have Bruce Anderson. He grew up with these folks. So, go ahead.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. As I get going through my briefing here, I've got a strong military background, and one of the things we did, I started out in the infantry, dragging my knuckles across the ground and throwing bullets down range, transitioned into military intelligence. So as a military intelligence analyst, you end up doing a lot of briefings. And the generals always said, just tell me what you know, tell me what you don't know, and then tell me what you think. So I can tell you what I know here in about 2 minutes. I can tell you what I don't know, and it'll take all day to do that. But I can also tell you what I think here. If you have any questions during any of this, raise your hand and give me a shout. I'll be followed by Dr. Muir, So I'm going to talk a little bit about the basics and the handling and why we do what we do. And Dr. Muir will follow me and he will talk about the science behind the product that we're bringing to the table here. Our basic humic acid product is Premium 6. And then we also take Premium 6 and ferment it with an amino acid product, and that's Premium 21. Premium 21 is a product that Dean and Gary said that's what we want. That's what we want in our program. So Premium 21 is the product that we'll be talking about. In the realm of humic acids, it's all about molecular size. The smaller the molecule, the more bioactive it is. And we feel that we have a product that's got very low molecular weight, that works very well, blends well, gives us great performance. One thing that's very unique about our humic acid, our Premium 21 is a low pH. So most humic acid materials are a pH of 8.5, 9.5, 10, 11. Ours is buffered down to 4.5. So we blend well with fertilizers and we stay blended well. We get very good ionic bond with fertilizer and solutions. I love to see jar tests like this. So humic acid is a colloid suspended in water. So even though I say we have one of the smallest particle sizes, it is still a particle suspended in water. So as it sits over time in a tank, those colloids start migrating to the bottom. So we keep it moving. In our warehouse, our tanks get bubbled with air every week. We just keep it moving with air. It's all cone bottom tanks, and we move it. When you mix it with fertilizer, I like to get it moving at least every 3 days. And what I really enjoy doing is taking a jar test. So whatever mixture you're going to be using, I like to make that mixture, put it in a sample bottle, and put it on your desk. So every day, you look at that, and you can see what's going on with that product. And then you know, hey, it's time to go give that thing a stir. Give it a mix, get it moving. And if it sits for too long, all those colloids will go to the bottom and they'll kind of connect together, and you get a layer of clay in the bottom of your tank after a month, 2 months. And once that clay layer establishes itself, it's hard to get that up and moving again. So we just like to always keep our product moving. All humics are sourced from lignite or leonardite. There are a number of deposits of that across North America. 20, 25 years ago, we kind of said, you know, you can go to any one of these sources, you can get lignite, you can make humic acid, and that is true. Over the years, we've learned there are differences. So our source is up in central Canada. We do feel we found a product that makes a higher quality humic acid than on average. And somebody once told me, don't ever read your own marketing material. Well, I got to tell you, I've read our own marketing material. I believe it. I drank the Kool-Aid. I truly believe that BioGrow has a better product. And that's why I've been using BioGrow products for over 2 decades. So the good, the bad, and the ugly about humic acids, you know, the good thing is we bring cation exchange capacity to the fertilizer zone, help mitigate salt issues, increase biological activity, increase nutrient uptake. By doing all those things, we also improve soil tilth. We are a source of carbon. Some people say humic acid is a source of food for microbes. Other people say, no, it's not. It's a housing complex for microbes to live in and for microbes to flourish on. I stay out of that argument. I don't care if it's a food source or a place for them to live. I know we support the biological efforts that are going on in the soil. So either way, I'm happy. The bad news is many humic acids don't blend well. Ours does. Blending with fertilizers, I've yet to find a fertilizer that we are not able to blend with. One caveat to that is a true slow-release nitrogen. A lot of those like to be in a high pH solution, and if you buffer it down with our low pH product, sometimes it'll tear a slow-release nitrogen apart. But our best claim to fame is we blend with calcium nitrate, we blend with potassium thiosulfate. Many humics do not do that, and we are very compatible with those products. I've got a little tickler here of find and buy. So there's a lot of humic acids out there in the marketplace. I'm telling you, mine is one of the better ones. BioGrow is one of the better ones. There are also some good products out there. Dr. Muir has studied over 40 different products in the last 30 years. There are some good ones out there. And there's a TV show They did a special on humic acid one day, and they said their conclusion was, find a product that works for you on your farm and buy it from someone you trust. So we've got the product, you found us, now we got to establish that level of trust. Other things that we hear in the marketplace, some people say, hey, your humic acid should be organic certified. Ours is. Premium 21 has an organic certification. I am not an organic expert. If I get about 2 questions deep into an organic conversation, I pass them off to Reggie or to Gary. Because it's like, I know a little bit about organics, but I'm not the organic expert. Other people say it should not be cooked. So many products, when they're making humic acid, they will process it under high heat or pressure. And what that does is it denatures that molecule. So you can make a humic acid under high heat, and you can yield a higher percentage of humic. So you might make a 22% or a 24% humic solution, but that molecule has turned to ash. It still tests as humic, but agronomically it doesn't have the effect that we want it to have. All of our humic is processed 140 degrees or lower. We just keep it below that temperature. Another customer one day, before he was my customer, he says, I've been buying humic from product X, and it's oxygenated. And humic to work well, it has to be oxygenated. He says, his ear's oxygenated. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. And he says, well, we tested it with an oxygen meter. So I brought a sample of our product and took it up there, and he tested it, and he was smiling. I said, so we can be friends? And he says, yeah, we're friends. So I don't know what the parameters were, but he was happy with us. We met his parameters. A good humic will have a fraction of fulvic acid in it. A lot of companies will strip fulvic out of it and sell the fulvic, and then they have humic without fulvic in it. I think one of the reasons our product works well is we have a good fraction of fulvic acid in there. And obviously it has to mix well. You have to be able to get it mixed in your tank and apply the product properly. Humic acid is not fertilizer. We play a supporting role. So in the whole strategy of what we're doing, humic acid, we are assisting with fertility and soil tilth. We are not fertilizer. And I think our product has a 101 analysis, but we don't want you to use it as a fertilizer. We're there to help support that fertilizer effort and help get fertilizer into the plant. We do not add biology to our humic, so it's a blank pallet or an empty bus, and you can load that bus up with your biology, and we do a good job of supporting the biological effort. We don't have any hormones in our humic acid, but humic acid helps with hormonal expression in the plant. Kelps, we have kelp product, there's a lot of kelps out there. We help assist the kelps work well, but we don't have kelp in our product. So it's a blank pallet that you can load up and get it out to the field with whatever you need to. Agronomically, this is what caught my eye. The first time I applied humic acid, it was in 1998. I was running a retail liquid fertilizer plant in central Wisconsin and having some success. I met the owner of Wild Grove the winter of '97. And he was talking about humic acid and everything it does and what it brings to the marketplace. And I said, we need to look at that. We need that product. So I started blending humic with my fertilizers, and I'm just amazed by the results that we got. Increased root mass, increased soil microbiological activity. And in the late 90s, in production ag, nobody really talked about soil microbiology. But today, it's what we're looking at. And so we realize the importance of that. We're buffering salts. We're increasing phosphorus uptake. We're making nitrogen use more efficient. Uptake potassium and calcium. We've documented those facts. So it just brings a lot to the table, helps everything work better. If I do all these things, then I would postulate the next step is we are helping increase yield potential of the crop, or helping maintain the yield potential. Once that crop is planted, there's a genetic potential to yield X number of bushels per acre, X number of tons of silage per acre. And then as events happen throughout the year, that yield is reduced. So we're doing everything we can to maintain that yield potential at the highest level we possibly can. Just the basic thing of putting 20–30% more roots under that plant. We get into some temperature stress or water stress. If I can level out the peaks and valleys of those stresses on that plant every day, I'm helping with yield potential. Physical timing and placement. We do a lot of in-furrow applications. We love to be in furrow. Also, we help if a person doesn't do in-furrow, they're just doing a 2x2, we like to be there. We like to be banded. Early bird discussion earlier about banded placement and efficiencies. So we enjoy being with that fertility band and a higher concentration in the band in that soil. So a lot of in-furrow or 2x2 followed by wide drop or a targeted band at cultivation time. BioGrow is also working on a dry soluble product line. We are at the beginning of those phases. So we're working on a dry granule that can be blended with dry fertilizer and spread. We're also looking at powder coating urea. I think that works well in Idaho and Oregon and Washington where they have very low humidity. Sometimes you come to the Midwest. I have put 50 pounds of powdered humic acid into a fertilizer tower. I think it's still up there. You know, it reacts with the humidity and it sticks to the buckets of the elevator, sticks to the tubes, you know, and I think it's still there. It'll come out one of these days. We're also looking at the possibilities of coating or encapsulating, you know, MAP, DAP, potash, that sort of thing. This is what I like to see. I have done a majority of my work the last 25 years in potatoes. Potatoes are a weak-rooted crop, and we go out there and balance the fertility, get some humic acid in there, and we just see this root mass. And that makes me smile. In the early 90s, when I first started working with potatoes, it was very frustrating because those roots didn't even cross the row. So you've got that potato hill, we're irrigating water and fertilizer out there. That fertilizer and water is running off the hill into the furrow, and it's gone. And it never sees the roots. So now what we do is we get those roots to crisscross between the rows, and the earlier I can get that done, the better I feel. This is actually cantaloupes in Kansas. The guy was planting cantaloupe slips, and as he planted, he had water would go in that little furrow where he was planting the cantaloupes. He had fertilizer in the water. He had ordered some Premium 21, delay in getting it there. So he planted half of his field without Premium 21 in that mix, and the salts in his fertilizer burned those roots. It really set those plants back. They did survive, but there was a percentage of mortality, and they were behind. The next day, when he planted, he had Premium 21 in that tank with the fertilizer. The humic acid buffered the salts of that fertilizer. So he called me and was pretty excited about it. Here's field corn, standard program, and a couple gallons of Premium 21 in a 2x2. So I like seeing those kinds of pictures. I always joke, you know, I don't even have to put this up here because it's like, you know, the salesman's not going to put a photo up there unless his product makes it look better, right? So just a little humor about that. Same here, guys using 31818 in furrow. We added our Premium 21 to that package, got this a little bit better root system. Timing is everything. We talk a lot about potassium. So I have gone out sometimes in a cornfield, and from emergence to V5, I can dig up corn plants, treated and untreated, and I've got a massive root system underneath the plant. It's like, man, you know, we're gonna have a great yield result here, and then at the end of the year, the yield is about the same. And I think a big part of that is this potassium demand. And when this slide first came out, I think 300 bushel corn was kind of a target out there that we were all wondering if we'd, you know, be there or not be there. And, you know, in today's world, there's a lot of corn yields that are you know, steadily above 200, 250, 280. But what this shows is for about a 15 to 18 day time period, there is a demand curve where that corn plant per acre needs 15 pounds of potassium every day. And I think there's a lot of soils out there that you take a soil test and the potassium is there, but can that soil release that potassium fast enough to meet this demand curve for that short period of time? So I think if we increase the root mass of that plant, we also have to pay attention to the potassium availability. And it's not a one-time approach. It's not go out there and spread, you know, 800 pounds of potash. It's timing, it's balancing the soil, and multiple strategies to get the potassium there when the plant needs it. In the state of Wisconsin, as people are following the university recommendations for potassium, yields are going up. Price of fertilizer obviously has gone up. So I think people are applying less potassium, and I think the university recommendations are not keeping up with the removal rates. So in the last 25 years, the soil test levels of potassium in our soils has steadily gone down. So it's making this problem even worse. And I use this slide not because I think everybody should go out and say, hey, I'm going to grow 308 bushels of corn, but even if you're growing 200 bushels of corn, you still have that demand period in that crop. So here's corn. This is soybeans. This is dry matter accumulation in soybeans. So you see that same high demand curve in a short period of time. This is potatoes. In potatoes, 30 days after emergence to 45 days after emergence. There's a 15-day time period. There's a huge demand for potassium. If I'm working with a potato grower who fall spreads his potash and he's not willing to change that practice, then I probably don't go back to that guy, because he's not going to see the results that we're used to seeing. He needs to change that fall applied potash to a spring pre-plant and have planting and a side dress application. And there's even instances we'll go out there with an airplane and we'll fly sulfate of potash or potassium chloride on to target the timing needs. Onions, same thing with onions. Look at that potassium demand curve. Shift gears now to soybeans. In 2015, Sean Connolly at the University of Wisconsin was funded by the Wisconsin Soybean Growers Association. They wanted to do a study and just say, hey, if we put 2 gallons of something in furrow on soybeans, what products work, what products don't work? So Sean reached out to me and other fertilizer suppliers and said, just give me something. What do you think is going to work 2 gallons per acre in furrow on soybeans? And it's a little bit daunting because you're going to put this out there, it's going to be published. It's like, I haven't done a lot of work with soybeans. I don't know. I'm gonna roll the dice and give them some products and see what happens. So 7 different companies participated, 18 different products, and they did a trial on good Arlington clay loam soil, some of the best soil in Wisconsin, and then they also did a trial up in Plainfield at the Hancock Research Farm. That's got it's very sandy soil. It's probably 0.9% organic matter, and that's my home turf. That's where I've done all my work with potatoes. So I've got trial data from this Plainfield sandy loam in Arlington on the clay loam soils. That little bit of 2 gallons in furrow, I think it made a difference up front early, and then later on everything kind of evened out. But in Plainfield we saw some neat differences. In 2015, this information was published, and it was published in such a way that it's just kind of a chart, a whole bunch of numbers, didn't really mean anything. And I had a couple growers call me and ask me about my products because of this trial. And after about 2 years, I thought, you know, I need to do a better job of understanding these results. So I took the Hancock data and I put all these numbers into a spreadsheet that I could sort from top to bottom. And once I did that, I found if I sorted by yield, my 3 products were in the top 5. I felt pretty good about that. Also, the beans were not inoculated, and I was disappointed in that. So there was one product this Novozymes Celtec was the only inoculant product they had on these beans. So where they inoculated the beans with no fertility support, the yield was at the bottom. Here they've got a little bit of fertility. I wouldn't recommend 1034 in furrow, but that's the product that they tried, and that was middle of the pack. And then where they did inoculant with fertilizer, they were number 3. And if all the brains in this room work like my brain, I would say, you know, what if we did fertility with biology, with some humic acid? Where would that put us, you know? So I think, you know, just use this for some direction. And talk about our product line here. Our Roots B was a product that was just fulvic acid. And BioGrow, we like to put humic acid in the soil. We use fulvic acid as a foliar. But this was just a fulvic only. And then getting more into our comfort zone. Back in the day, in 2015, we had amino CYT that has become Premium 21. So this one, I didn't want to change the name because this is the way the product was, but this is our Premium 21, the product that AgriEnergy is sourcing from us now. So 2 gallons got us right up there to number 2. The Cal High from BioGrow is a liquid calcium with organic acids, and I also put some cobalt and molybdenum in with it. And that was by far the highest yielding one, you know, 73 bushels versus, you know, 70 or in the 60s. Bruce Anderson has not had the courage to sell that calcium starter fertilizer yet, because what happens if you blend calcium in a tank that's had phosphorus or sulfur starter fertilizer in it? Everybody knows what's going to happen, right? You're going to have some precipitate, and my phone's going to ring, and they're going to say, hey, my stuff is all plugged up. So I do have a couple of customers that are using this calcium product as a soybean starter, but I'm very careful where I place it. They also sorted yield by protein percent. I was amazed when I sorted by protein percent, my 3 products were the top 3. So there's something going on there with protein synthesis within that plant. Interestingly enough, 1034 by itself was quite low. Celtec by itself was quite low. Where you combine fertilizer with biology, you got right up there, you know, in the top 3rd. And maybe somebody in this room can tell me, if we sort by oil percentage, the same products that increase protein decrease oil percentage. When you sell your soybeans, do you get paid on oil? No. Okay. We get paid by yield. Plant stand, what this one tells me, if I sort by plant stand, we're middle of the road there, so I think 2 gallons is enough of my product. I wouldn't want to go more than that because I wouldn't want to start reducing plant stand. And I always end with the yield again. You know, pretty proud of what we did with that soybean yield. And I'm excited to take this further and further and further and put together a full program. You know, it's never one thing, right? It's never one thing. It's the whole program tied together, and then the soil health and Mother Nature cooperate. This is a field of potatoes. I apologize for showing you a potato field, but I'm a potato person. This was taken this year. It's in southern Michigan, and half of the field was fumigated, standard practice to take care of nematodes and verticillium. They will fumigate the field. They'll spend about $450 to fumigate, and basically they're trying to kill everything in the soil. They come back and plant potatoes. So what we did is we took a BioGrow program with a strong fertility program, and we put that on half of the field and fumigated the other half of the field. And what happened here, the grower said the yield was about the same, but we were able to raise a good crop without fumigating that field. And on the BioGrow side of the field, we had a lot of Premium 21 out there. We had a huge root system. humic acid, again, increasing the uptake of potassium with potatoes after they flower. Once they've flowered, they go through a change within that plant, and they start dumping potassium out of the canopy and down into the roots to form the potato tubers. So when potassium levels in the canopy drop, early blight comes in, and we start getting early blight disease. So I think what's showing in this field is we assisted that plant take up enough potassium that we held off the early blight. So it's not a fungicide, but we actually had almost a fungicidal effect where early blight was hammering here, and our potassium levels, our good root system and our high potassium levels help protect us from early blight. With that, I love quotes from General Mattis, General James Mattis. He always said, be brilliant at the basics. So as we go through all these things, don't lose sight of the basics. Soil health, the right varieties on the right soil, and then backing it up with a full, well-rounded program of all these products that are available to us. That's going to be our path to success. Any questions of me? Did I put everybody to sleep? All right. I'll be followed by Dr. Muir. He's going to talk about the science behind humic acid and why we think some of these products are working the way they are. And I think you'll enjoy them. Dr. Muir spent 30 years at the University of Idaho studying humic acids and other products. So not only does he understand how bio-growth products work well, but he studied virtually every product in the marketplace. So if you have a question about our products, that's great. If you have questions of him about almost any other products, he's done a lot of testing.
Yes, I will be as well.
So with that, Dr. Muir.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with you. I was born and raised on a farm, but not in USA, in Azerbaijan. And over there, we didn't have, you guys have, Dan was showing this fancy spray. We used to use flying carpet and spray all our things. So anyhow, as Bruce mentioned, I work for University of Idaho. I did actually research and outreach for 32 years as nutrient management. I was born and raised on a farm and ranch, and we all the time practiced what I call that soil is a living system. In my family, when we go up by our land, we pray, God, thank you what resources you have given us. And it has been in my soul all the time. And then there we put lots of emphasis, because traditionally in those developing countries, we did anyhow organic gardening. We didn't have all this pesticides and all. I'm not against them. So anyhow, so I learned actually over there when I was working, I implemented 400,000 hectares of land for desertification, which was with humic. So it was almost 42 years ago. And then I got a scholarship to come to US, and then crazy Ayatollah came to Iran. I didn't go back because I was going to go there, probably he was going to hang me. But anyhow, so I did lots of research on humic substances, what we call humic substances, you know, humic acid, fulvic acid. How many of you heard of human, H-U-M-I-N? So that's a part of humic acid. As in the natural soil, that's actually foundation of the humic. But we're not capable of solubilizing that after it becomes rock. Millions of years, depends on how you believe. So anyhow, I will collectively talk about, we call this functional carbon, what they will do in soil, in the water, enhancing actually the impact, I love it, biological farming. Really now every day, everybody talks about biostimulant, regenerative ag. I all the time respect companies like AgriEnergy. 3 decades they were doing this. That itself is a lot. It means they created good basis. When you survive after 2-3 years, that's always my experience. I've been there doing that. Biological farming is a very, very deep, and I can talk hours about how soil, plant, water relations are all related really to energy. And hopefully I'll highlight some of them in my talk. This is my talk, Physiochemical and Biological Dynamics of Premium 21 on soil health, crop yield, and quality. But I will give you a general, because I had the honor of being co-chair for International Humic Substances, which consists of 120 universities all over the world that they do humic research. They do soil biology, soil health. So I was from actually Israel to Russia to Spain to Germany. I used to travel and we do lots of research. So I'm going to act for the basics. I'm going to show collectively what the scientists are talking about, good humic. Then I will talk about Premium 21, why we think it is good or better. In BioGrow, actually, is another thing. We take a system approach. What does that mean? If I come and tell you, oh, I have the best humic, it will do fantastic job for you, I'm actually lying. System approach is God created soil as a living system, and that's intelligence. It has physical, chemical, and biological intelligence. And it has its own balances. Youngest soil is what, 10,000 years old. So it's a 10,000 years of intelligence God created there. First of all, we have to learn from that. That's what the Israelis do. They say they don't teach the soil what to do. They learn how it behaves, and based on that, make it better based on soil characteristics. So system approaches, we don't just come and say we use a humic. We have a laboratory, I take your soil analysis. I created with the FAO, some other countries, ratios. There is a delicate ratio between macronutrient ratios, like NPK, zinc, iron, boron, manganese, the same in human being. So those interactions, sometimes I see some farmers just got hypnotized putting NPK. No, if you sometimes miss, probably you heard of rule of minimum, German scientists find, if you lack in one thing drastically, it impacts everything. So that's what I relate that system approach. We look at system approach, like if Bruce as a customer sends a soil, we calculate that. Sometimes I go lab, look at what we are doing. So that's a system approach that we tell farmer, okay, you're lacking this, you need to overcome that. So that's what we call a system approach. This is the definition of the humic, what I call a functional carbon. Dr. Chaco, this was the one actually I did the research with Northeastern University. You can have organic matter, even 10%. If those microbes are not active, doesn't mean anything. If you have a beehive and bees are dead, can you make honey? No. The same thing, those microbes, as that was showing you how much are there. Sometimes I say, if you look at the soil, you can have cows grazing there. They have at least 1,500 pounds of fungi, bacteria, protozoa, all of those. If they are not there, God created them. They do amazing energy they create. They do biological things. They activate physical characteristics. So they actually marry without even minister because they just know each other very well. So we did this research and actually coordinated in Pacific Northwest. We got 700 conventional farms, 48 states. We analyzed that soil. Even I had 15% like organic matter to 0.5%. Some of those 0.5% organic matter was microbes were so active, maybe making mineralization. Am I clear when I say mineralization? I mean, get organic matter, make in organic form that you can use it, like a nitrate, nitrogen, ammonium nitrate. By analyzing that, we find out that they were no humic substance, little or no. Even you can, but my point is it's good to have organic matter, but is it functioning? That's what today I'm talking about system. What we do, sometimes with cultural practices, we create so much salt index, we kill those microbes. Those are worker bees. That's what we want to do, that as you know better than I do. So I want to see that actually it's published, but I will emphasize how we create that functionality of carbon. And actually, Dean earlier was talking about how they started the high understanding that they call it biological farming. That's biological farming, understanding soil, plant, water relationship in relation the physical, chemical, and biological energy they create. What are the humic? Again, you can read thousands of things. Dr. Chako is from Japan. He spent 40 years of his time. I had the honor of knowing that. Bruce even briefly mentioned, when this humic substances, you know, every time microbes die, the chemistry changes to something else. Okay, organic matter changes something else. Naturally, they're evolving. We call it ROM, recent organic matter, and old organic matter, wise guy. That those are functional carbon. Microbes all together work, they combine, and give you energy. I love that actually they put the AgriEnergy solution. That's really reality. Can you believe they thought about that 30 years ago? That's for me is really fascinating, makes me high, without drinking vodka. So anyhow, what Dr. Chako says, their source of carbon and energy. Remember, energy. Microbes need that energy in order to survive. And they activate, we call it carbon network. Like they have a communication when you have functional carbon. Hopefully, briefly, I will talk about that. And then their analog of ATP. What does ATP mean? Anybody remember from school ATP? Adenosine triphosphate. It's an energy we do have as a human. That's an energy. God created in a way, after a long time, that organic matter, microbes, gives energy. When you inject, you know, somebody taken to, actually to hospital dying, ATP, sometimes they give different things, they increase their energy level. That's what the functional carbon in soil will do for plant and soil. We call soil and plant metabolism. A big word, but means how they work. Okay, keep that in mind. That ATP actually will enhance your nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash use efficiency. I eliminated that because it's a complex chemistry, but what it will do, ATP will do for nitrogen, if you're an organic farmer, if you're using MAPTAP or other NPK, what it will do, it become an enzyme, ATPase, create lots of hydrogen around it, around the root. Then nitrate is negative, is that right? Negative and positive attracts each other. God created, this is the best slow release. I've done 15 years of study on slow release nitrogen there, that you don't need to spend. I'm not just saying you don't buy slow release, but I did lots of things with slow release nitrogen. It just does fantastic. That's what it will do. With phosphorus, I would say create more surface area. So maybe I say that. How many of you think if you apply 100 pounds of phosphorus, how many pounds of that, if you are utilized by soil and plant, if you are top 3% of the farmers? Any idea? If you're top 3%, best farmer, if you're applying 100 pounds of phosphorus in your soil, how many percent of that you can utilize? You're there. That's an average. Very good. Top 3% or 30. average is 18 to 20. God bless you, you're right. Can you believe what happens the rest? Anybody? They phosphor with calcium, make calcium phosphate precipitate. That's what they do. But when you have an organic matter, even though if you don't have 10%, no problem, but that carbon is functional, it creates also more surface area. You have more parking lot, then it can hold that phosphor, not let it go right away marry with calcium. So homogeneously, equally, they will marry. Nature has this intelligence. Well, what we did, sometime, another gave us the fertilizer have a salt index. We primed them the wrong way, but that's why in order to create that energy in the soil, we need to watch that type of balance. The same thing with potash.
Did you stop?
Okay, when we analyze your humic, good humic, this is made by 120 University. I was involved with them. If you see on the right-hand side, this one, how you go doctor, he gives you heart electrocardiogram, and up and down he says your heart is good here or not. This is electrocardiogram of the humic substances. Shows all this functional group. If I don't have those, so I measure, I can rate your humic. It's okay or not okay, but when I was in university, I did 24 companies research. Those top 5, 6 that they were really good, still they're doing fantastic, but 19 of them, I call it snake oil. And they were snake oil after a year or two. They, first of 2 years, maybe they liked farmer. After that, farmer told them go to hell, and they're gone. But the point is, these are functional. My intention is not giving you chemistry, but in the actual BioGrow, what I do, I measure these. When you have these, what they will do, they chelate, they're natural chelator. You know, you have EDTA, DTPA, chelation, God created. Organic acids are base chelating without dropping with pH. They can do everything for you. They can complex. What does complex mean? Mean like there is a family. If somebody is sick, cannot work, they go help. They go ahead. That's a complex. Hold on other nutrient. That's what they do. Buffer. What does that mean? If salt is out, or sometimes it is too much calcium or not as much calcium, they try to make a way to work. That's what nature's intelligence is that God created. So advanced technology, what it is, if you buy any humic, especially they say liquid, if you put in the water, actually we call it polydispersion, mean it has to dance like that. How it is, you have to watch many of the humic they make. They make them what? With the high potassium hydroxide to bring the pH up. Nothing. But in nature, that's not how God created organic acid. They call it organic acid. In nature, you get they're acidic. When they're acidic, their functionality are a lot higher. So when we do these, we have to watch, because some people, what they do, put too much heat, they denature. There are 90,000 random molecules in those. We still don't know exact molecule, but we do know functional group. But when you have, we call thermophilic, how many of you make compost? Anybody? Okay. You know you go about 145, 50, maximum 60, is that right? That's why we call it thermophilic. When you make humic thermophilically, that's how God created, microbes love that. We call it all you can eat buffet. They go eat, that's why the compost is. So we follow that science that we call it thermophilic. But some they go 300 degree Fahrenheit and all, and they denature that. So that's a science of that. I don't want to go too this way. So what they do when you put in the water, if this is the columnar is the best, it will come gravitational. If you see, it goes hydroscopic. God created in a way, if you have a salt there, that will go grab the salt. You know, salt goes up. I don't know if you have been in the field, if you leave it idle, salt comes up. So it naturally goes and holds the salt. As a result, or any other, many of the fertilizer have a salt, is that right? So naturally, it will help, it will buffer that. Okay, so then, you remember how NPK get utilized in the soil? Have you heard of mass flow? This creates mass flow, means moves around the root. The more nutrient are close to root, the better they get translocated, because they don't need to travel as high. That's how nature created. We'll show you this morning, actually, Dean mentioned, they call it pores, micropores, air and water, they call it pores. Hopefully we'll talk about it. And then they call it diffusion. There's a different way, those chemistry. Diffusion is part of this AgriEnergy, because they create energy. They actually get electron, they give an electron, those are what happen. We call it electrodynamic. Those are happening with the energy. So God created that energy in the soil. Okay? So when we say AgriEnergy solutions, and whoever did that actually made me high, honestly. I love that title, because it really identifies what they do. Identify. Now everybody talks again about organic acid or regenerative things, and they've been doing that. So another thing we do, we look at soil's intelligence, we fuse the chemistry and biology. We cannot, what we do, we perfect what there is there. The intelligence is there, everything based on your soil or water analysis, how we can make that fit. Another intelligent thing we learned that some of this thing we'll show, we need to keep that humic pH in an acidic form, the way nature intended. That's what they call organic acid. Even though you buy humic, it's organic acid, but its pH is high, is that right? And nothing against, but it's a different chemistry. I have done that with lots of research with rock phosphate, with monoammonium, actually phosphate, and in the lab, in the field, we get at least 21% different in phosphor use efficiency. We were talking, you said about 20% efficiency. Okay, can you believe if you increase your phosphor 20 more percent, that's what organic acid will do. On the premium 21, I'll come back a little bit about that. We try to not only keep chemistry in the way nature intended, it's acidic. At the same time, we do have different plant extract that very well substantiated what they do in nature. We get all those plant extract and extract by bioisolation, extract those different amino acids from them. So we are not manipulating anything, we are not artificially making. What nature created, we isolate, get that, put with humic, that's what in nature happens. Anyhow, you know, when your plants are growing, naturally what they do, root exudates have amino acid, amino sugar, polysaccharide, all of those are in the root zone. Then when we analyze how they do, some of them are different root exudates. Root exudates will do. So we learn from that science, put that, again, we didn't create those, but we perfected based on different environment. So by having that, what happens? We create aggregate. What does aggregate? You call we call organomineral complexes, you call aggregate. Mean, first thing humic does, goes marry with your clay. How many of you actually, when you analyze your soil, actually measure your percent sandstone clay? Not the lab, because I used to work at the university in the lab, they thought I was really good. I was 20% off. But when you analyze that percent sandstone clay, it gives you lots of information Because first thing, and then we can calculate actually how much humic you need. First thing humic does, marry with clay. Because clay is the one that's a major play. Then sand, silt, clay, they work together. So hopefully I'll talk about that. By doing those, what they do, they release sulfate, phosphate, nitrate, ammonium. How many organic growers are here? Very, very beautiful. So your rock phosphate, I did the humic with sulfur and rock phosphate. I was able to release more phosphor out of rock phosphate. This is what we call an actual system approach. By understanding, we go lab, see how we do that. So then actually if you have mapped that, again, will we do the same? So this is great that you're doing that. Another important thing is, I did most of my study with this with German and Fall. There are delicate relation between nitrogen, sulfur, calcium, magnesium, calcium, phosphor, phosphor, zinc, and magnesium, potassium, potassium, boron. I can go on and on. This is another thing we do, and I have been able for the last 40 years diagnose lots of problem with this. Look at this is one of the farmers I don't want to mention. He was telling me he had a grain meal. I am not getting protein. Well, it's supposed to be ideal is 10-to-1, even 5-to-1 is okay. If you divide parts per million of his nitrogen to sulfur, it was 0.079. Just by increasing a little bit of sulfur, his protein went up. That's what nature does. In order to create sugar, potassium-boron ratio, sometimes some airfields I see, you don't put them in enough boron. Here it's okay, but some like potassium-boron ratio go like a 4,000, 3,000 to 1. So these are something actually AgriEnergy will have. I have these for pH of more than 7, less than 7, but these are very important to calculate, to know, really gives you diagnosis. Like how you go to doctor, test your blood and see what's going on. This is really a blood test. Besides, at the same time, when we know these ratios, it will exactly tell you what is lacking, what's going on. It's a better, really good identification tool. How many of you heard of SAP test? Good. Many of the consultants telling me, Mir, when you give me this stuff, they're exactly correlated with SAP test. The reason that's what SAP test, but SAP test is the time you get the sample it gives you now. But when you balance that soil, it will last the whole season. So I had in California, I had many places, especially Canada. This morning I had, he said, my goodness, we are looking at this farmers, to raise here in dry land, they have 20 bushels, 25 bushels. They were doing that, adding a little bit of this macronutrient issue to make balance. When you have a humic, it will help. It is there to help, okay? Again, when we call it smart technology, again, we extract this plant extract that do biological work, and they do enhanced mineralization. As I said, you can have organic matter, but microbes not working, they don't mineralize. Am I telling you what mineralization means? We assume you have organic matter in the soil, or you have roots that microbes work on it, make nitrate for you. That's a mineralization. Microbes make nitrate, nitrogen, and ammonium nitrogen from organic matter. Do you know how efficient that is? 70% without salt index. But God's factory is the best thing. They created, you can have that. So we see that. As Bruce mentioned earlier, you look at NPK, I documented this, at least average 15, 20, and 15% on NPK use efficiency will impact that. So you can, I mean, many farmers can go above that. So we have done lots of research. I don't want to actually take your time. But again, during the break, I'll be honored if you have any question, I can talk to you about it. Then again, and I said, we do have on the Premium 21 amino acid. We extract that from the plants that God already created there. Only thing we do, just don't manipulate it. We have a bio-isolation, mean naturally ferment them, how you make a pickle and other things. We just let them do that. We extract those amino acids and put with the humic. That's what Premium actually 21 is. Lots of amino acid that I will talk about. Okay? And then, when you have bioactive isolation, then we separate without adding anything, just naturally picking those and watch and see how they work. And then we purify, and that's what's called Premium. So, what does that mean? This is important point. How much time I have, Gary?
Oh, another half an hour.
Oh, good. Okay, then okay. What does that mean, all this thing? Actually, Dean earlier talked about you know, the aerospace and water and all. We assume if I have a 1 pound of soil from your field, if we analyze 45% of sand, silt, clay, is that right? And the rest, Dean talked this morning, pores, porosities. So as a farmer or consultant, when I used to teach, I used to go many states, and every year I had at least 1,600 people in my talk, and I asked, how many of you as a farmer or as a consultant want to enhance your micropores, small pores, or macropores? Which one? Anybody? Do you want as a farmer increase your macropores, big pores, or small pores? Don't worry if it's wrong or not, but just any idea? Which one? God bless, small. I wish we had a door prize. If I have a Persian money I gave you, it doesn't worth anything. It's like $1,000, it's not $1. So anyhow, yes, it's small pores. Anybody can say why? Research shows small pores are pores that root, water, nutrient reside. And then you have the smart pores. God created physical dynamics of soil. Big pores become oxygenated. You know when you have oxygen, what happens? You're much more healthier. Is that right? That's what it is. So we want to create small pores. If we make a comparison of the organic acid and clay mineral. Anybody remember clay mineral size, what they are? They're 0.002 millimeter. Okay, my humic particle size are nanometer. Okay, what does that mean? 1 centimeter is 10 million nanometer. Okay, now you're going to deport me, making you confused. Mean, if you marry 1 gram of your soil with 1 gram of humic, you compare the size, you create 3,000 times more space. Okay? Generally, I was showing this before, but here with the thing, I'm afraid if I was going to do that, Gary was going to deport me. What I did, because I have almost pocketfuls. You're seeing this here. We assume this is your soil, 0.00. Everybody from the back can see 0.002 millimeter. When you're putting humic, actually this is 100, multiply that by 300, 30,000, you have more surface area. Okay, I'll show you. This is when you're adding humic, so what does that mean? So you have more parking lot for, you said, when we apply phosphorus, 20% above. Now this guy's whole chelate them, complex them. So everybody have all you can eat buffet without fighting. So that's what humic do. That's what actual organic matter in soil will do. But sometimes what we do, when it's not mineralized and those microbes are not in, then you shut off the engine. They are not. Those worker bees are not producing honey. So that's important thing. Again, today I want to say that soil is a living system. We need to ignite that in the root zone. When you ignite, the rest will take care of that. When you connect root to the canopy, later I'll show canopy is actually actual engine. Will create more organic matter than my premium 21. Better than any organic acid. That's how God, nature created that. Hopefully we'll know. Okay? So, keep that in mind. And then we have a micropore and macropores. Oh.
Go to sleep. Yep, there.
What happened? Okay, so anything, another, I just relate that, anything you grow, wheat, barley, triticale, apple, pear, banana, anything, pumpkin, anything. If you want to sell that thing, you bring me in the lab, I have done when I was in university, and there are many other universities have done it. If I analyze that, anything you sell, you think how many percent of that is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen? Any idea? Well, guys, anybody? How many percent of anything you sell, you bring and I analyze, you put all this fertilizer, everything. How many percent of that carbon, hydrogen, oxygen? Don't worry about it. Give me a number. How much? Oh God, you. Ah, wow. Door price. Excellent, excellent. If you were in my school, I could have said you got already A, you don't need to take the class. So, look at that. 96.6% is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Where do they come from? CO2 in the air got created. Water, maybe rain or you apply water. And what? Sunshine. So what you do, what regenerative ag is, what we call AgriEnergy we're trying to do, if you create functional carbon, even if you don't want to put premium 21 or humic, but if you know how you make those microbes work in that soil, and make that soil active, what they do, you ignite that root, it connects with the canopy. Canopy is the one making that, is that right? When you have that, what happens? Create more root excitation. 10 times, 20 times. Actually, I did some studies, 80 times more than I gave on premium 21. Do you know why premium 21 works good, they think? We tricked it. We already ignite that, we put that, and then root excidates are high, and a farmer say, what in the world is inside that? That's what it is. We learned that from God's intelligence. So that's how we get. We got that, hopefully. Then, under high resolution microscope, this is, I work with some Russian scientists gave me. If you look at, there are filaments like this, and there are spheroid, they're round at the end. You really look at high resolution, good functional carbon is moving. We call it random point conformation. Like, I don't know my time, I was born in 200 BC. You know, olden time you had a tractor, you had the crack to start. This thing, they crack and they start. It's called random point conformation. Constantly they're moving. What does that mean, moving? Then when they move, they chelate, they complex, they buffer. That's what happens. So, if this thing marry with your clay minerals, as I showed you, we assume 1 gram to 1 gram, 1 pound to 1 pound, doesn't matter. You create that much space. Those are parking lots as I showed it here. Because last time I just was broadcasted, but we cannot do over here, just I put it there. So you create, you compare your relative comparison of your clay particle size with your organic matter particle size, you create that much space. This is one part of regenerative ag you do. What they call condo or connect root zone by starting root functional carbon, connect to canopy, and it will create more root exudates. And then you have humic, it enhances overcoming compaction, make NPK, macronutrient use efficiency go up. We'll stop there a little bit. I really don't want to spend too much time on that one. But the main thing is we extracted that intelligence of the plant extract, put with premium 21 with humic, and made that. The smart thing was we just ignited, and that's what nature gives us. More root exudates, as I said, that's better than even premium 21. But premium 1 is the cause, and that the others effect, cause effect, that's how we do. And again, many of the humic you go, nothing against, but if you look at pH, I work with more than 25 companies, generally from 9 to 11.5. That's okay, that's a different extraction. But here, we learn from God, so it's intelligent, we kept that within 3.5 to 4 point something on the acid. Again, if you look at this deal, if you do soil microbial carbon network, create that, when you have functional carbon, root cap, that's scientific fact, it acts like a dispatcher, 911. He says, auxin, cytokinin, gibberellin, what they are, they're growth hormone. Get ready, I have all I can eat buffet. Then your germination is high, your shoots are better, your leaves are healthier. As a result, plants is healthier, creating your more, as I said, by sunshine, CO2 in the air. So that is how really you create what I call a regenerative ag. Of course, there are some other things you can do, but this is the principle you can do. We call it carbon network. Really, they communicate. When you have that, watch your boron, even though it's small amount you need, but that does carbohydrate synthesis. When you have organic acid, make silica from your soil. It can be a carrier to make calcium move better. Then your nitrogen-sulfur ratio gives you protein synthesis. Then magnesium does more photosynthesis that we talk. As a result, transfer of energy. Look at that, AgriEnergy, they were really deep. Whoever created that, I love that title. But anyhow, then you go have form sugars, carbohydrate. Some of you call breaks. There are high breaks of sugar. And you know when you have high breaks, probably plants are more healthier, is that right? That's how you create. You create more carbohydrate, more polysaccharides. Then, like AgriEnergy, 3 decades for BioGrow, lots of people may not know. When I was university, I really got shocked. I compared this with many other humics. I was shocked. The guy who created that, how intelligent he must have been. Really, I say he had 3 decades of carbon currency for soil. When you make that igniting energy there, then microbes get alive. Fungi, bacteria, protozoa, all they get excited. As a result, you have a healthy soil. When you have a healthy soil, then you have a healthy plant. You have a healthy plant, now they think you have a healthy kids, healthy human being. That's a scientific fact. We are responsible for that. On the chemistry, we do put these. We have 21 different amino acids. We didn't artificially create. We extracted those from different plants. We extracted how nature had that in their mind what they do. We have protein. We have organic acid. Then we have those, I don't want to go to chemistry of that, we call it oligomeric functioning. What they do, again, I can relate to AgriEnergy. They have electron receiver, they have electron donor. Have you heard of covalence and electrovalence? That's how they do. They combine, they marry, they be happy. And they don't need minister by happening. That's what I say. When God created, they can do happily marry if we know how to do that. And again, scientifically, you may tell me go to hell, but this is what we are creating. We created hydrophobic pendenphenol, a big word. What does that mean? It opens more highways that plant roots can use chelate complex, and that's how we do. So when you create more highways, then they don't get blocked. Sometimes some people, yeah, they may put amino acid themselves they create, but they may not have a science of that they actually block. Here, since we extracted that from nature, we make that highways available. So, as a result, we follow nature's physical, chemical, and biological signature. That's what they call intelligence of your souls, or creating energy. Everything there is energy. If you highlight that, if you make that happen, then your yield quality is going to be better. I can say what it will do again, actually Bruce talked briefly. We can do more protein synthesis. You remember I told you nitrogen-sulfur ratio. If they're not actually an optimal, humic somehow will help that, but we want to be sure you have that. So then enzymatic activities. They activate enzyme because root exudates have more than 29 different enzyme and hormones. Saccharide, amino acid, amino sugar. What you do, you ignite, God gave you more. Okay? A mixed cell membrane, plant cell membrane, because when it is acidic, you have more fulvic. Fulvic molecule size is smaller, nutrient can penetrate. With humic, it's good. Humic is a maintenance guy, but the fulvic is functional guy. It's a chemist. Humic is that your mechanic. Fulvic is your chemical guy. It makes things work chemically. Okay? Sometimes it enhances during the respiration. When it's too much rain, or it's a stressful time, in the June, July, when you evapotranspiration goes up and down, somehow try to balance that. That's how God created. What we are doing is what has given us naturally. I told you, youngest soul is 10,000 years. We just learn from that. Whatever we did happen, we're trying to maintain that intelligence within that soil and plant. Okay? We said that it does respiration, and then what we call a nutritional physiology mean enhance, again, I'm repeating this, chelation, complexation. You know, some of you all the time say, oh, I need to buy chelation. I'm not saying you don't, but naturally it does for you. Makes things at least average for you. So then we get more root and shoot grow. And over when I visit farmers, say, wow, what did you put there that roots are better, roots are healthier? I said, when you look at your canopy, because when they connect, both of them are happy. The main thing is connecting lower part to top part. With my accent, one thing I can say, connecting those two is regenerative act. Again, you enhance that energy. And again, in short, I can say, proof is in pudding. What it is, we don't create something new from we just say what God created, extract them, do lots of lab work, be sure they're right, and try to give you. Again, you need to try. If it doesn't work, you can say health with you, it didn't work. But generally, most of the time we see they're working. These are actually Bruce talk. I don't want to talk too much. If you have any question, Bruce will tell you. I want to save a time to actually answer some of your questions. In summary, again, it helps soil and plant metabolism, soil and shoot growth. Again, we enhance root exudates, okay? Enhance soil health and quality factor, okay? And can be work in organic and conventional, and we increase nutritional efficiency by 15, 20, 15 NPK. I think with that, I would like to keep some time to answer the question.
Any questions, guys, from here?
Oh, yes.
On a typical organic farm, you're gonna go corn, soybeans, small greens, and alfalfa or whatever.
Mhm.
So most people will say, well, we don't need to add anything, that stuff is already there, we follow a good rotation.
Yeah.
Why would we have to add something like this?
But the reason is, if you're getting good mineralization, first thing I do mineralization back, they do. For 1% organic matter, or whatever, how much nitrate, nitrogen, ammonium nitrogen you get, or how much phosphate you get. That means when you put in industrial fertilizer, or even organically, compost and all, they have a salt index. The reason we put this, you decrease the salt index, enhance the functionality. That's why. Then if you think you are doing good, and everything is good, your yield, you don't need to do that. But main thing is, not estimating. You have to have data say why. Okay, anybody else? Right? Good question, I know, I'm looking, yes.
Did you get the percentage of humic fully? Like, what percentage of humic fully?
Okay, on this one, we do have more fulvic. Actually, overall, when we do have probably with the IHSS, we have 8% that they call humic substances, but we have more, we have 3.5%, 4% fulvic.
So you
Yeah.
how would this compare like fiber? The one that makes sense, the one carbon ones?
Yeah, well, I tell you another thing. Well, you know, Humic Product Trade Association, when they initially, those are the ones trying to coordinate and facilitate policy. Scientifically looking, really we talk the percentages, they push that because they do. It's not really percentage, it's a functionality. I have done Premium 6, I didn't know that university they brought. Again, it's all those, the best humic perform. The reason was, as they said, it ignited that plant health. We got more root exudates, organic acid. Roots create you more organic acid, more humic and fulvic than anything else. But when you have that pH in a low, it actually works with soil microbiome. That's what it is.
Would this have an increase in H3H as rheotic or anything like that? Would you see that?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yep. The main thing is you try any question. I think Dean and Gary has my thing. If we can do anything, we have a laboratory we can do. But the main thing is, as I say, seeing is the believing. You have to look at why it does. The only thing is, again, it ignites the plant itself works for you, not utilizing what is there. That's what it is.
So the pH of this?
pH of 3.4, 4 point something.
Or low or
Oh yes, yeah, but because the higher we put, that's okay. But molecules are totally different. The pH of high, you look at under high microscope we have, they are not as aggregated. When you have aggregated low, they are capable of more chelation. You know, fulvic itself has low molecule, 1,000, less than 2,000. That's what it can move through the cell walls. Okay? Make sense? Good. Okay, any other questions?
Dr. Muir, you talked about depending on your clay, you need to vary the rates. Can you make any generality statements there? Yeah, kaolinite versus montmorillonites, et cetera.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. This another thing is, you You know, I was telling them before, when you want to marry with your wife, is that right? You ask his dad is rich or has a yacht or what, is that right? Was a cousin, what is that right? How many of you know your soul's family? How many of you know, soul has its own behavior, every soul, even from field to field. So how many of you really know when I ask what kind of clay mineral you have? Is it molybdenite? Is it illite? Is it vermiculite? Anybody? The best thing you can do, your money already spent there. Soil Conservation Service, NRCS, has that. You give your township and information, you can go and pick, it will give you family of your soil. That they will give you sometimes, say, is it the expanding clay? Is it a shriveling clay? Because they, sometimes if there's a problem, I look at that. Because that's a behavior of that soil. So now you will know how to deal with it, instead of yourself to create that. So all those things you look at, you can print actually, they're available for you. You give township and all the land information you can get. So generally what we see depends on all of these. I have a formula I can calculate. If you tell us or Gary or Sen, I can calculate, right? If I know percent clay, your calcium magnesium ratio, percent salt at base saturation, about actually calcium phosphorus ratio, SAR, sodium absorption ratio, I can exactly, with 95% accuracy, say how much humic you need to apply. So with that, if you're asking that generally, it depends on how you're putting, we see from 4 gallon, you can go up to 20 gallon to 2 in stack. But again, they should be able to do that. If not, I'll be more than glad to calculate it. Sometimes you want to put workshop, I have those, they can calculate themselves. We're publishing this, we cannot give out, the Israelis and I are publishing those calculations. So, but we can give before publishing, so I can do that.
You generally have to apply every year, or does that tend to stick around in your soil, or what's the longevity of it?
Which one, that applying?
Yeah, if you're putting on 4 to 15, 20 gallons.
No, you have to, I'm glad you have. But you're talking about what, even acre foot for almost 4 million pounds, or 2 million pounds. You're putting 2 gallon, 10 gallon. My experience last 42 years have been, I learned this from farmers. If every year they apply, they start seeing yield, quality, everything that pays for it. I have a farmer, Dr. Blasser, actually he's a medical doctor, he's a farmer. He's been doing that 40 years. He had a pasture that actually useless. Now he's making 520 sack of the potato. The best alfalfa, they said it is, because he conditioned. Actually, I have his data I did in his field for 11 years. I have his data and I have on the actually precision ag showing what we did every year. But by 4th year, we start seeing he's getting better. The more we went, that he got above optimal. So, okay? Yes?
We have big sand hills, so more than likely you would recommend different big sand hills and then decent flats. So you more likely would you recommend different rates on the hills?
Blades, yes. Based on the sand, how much sand you have. So you have a leaching index, what they call sand, how much you have, your CEC, based on your CEC. Is it your CEC, you remember, is it more than 6 or 10 or more than 15? So we created that. So the more sand you have to apply in different interval, not one line. Because you don't have as much clay to marry. So with that, actually there was a big project, I got money from government, they called sand dunes in Hawaii County. There were about 12,000 acres I did. You won't believe it, within a year how we did. We watch the water, depends on if you have a rainfall or you put, then I put different interval. Every time I water run or every time I do something, you add, we call it continuum. Then what happens, those Silt, clay, I'm quite sure you have at least 5, 6, 7% clay there, is that right? Would it matter with clay? Silt is like a baby powder. They hold baby powder with glomalin. Dan was, I think was Dan yesterday, we're talking about we create, maybe Dean. So we create those sticky material, Bacillus bacterium, make the clay part of the silt that part of the particle. As a result, you aggregate it better. So yes, to answer your question, different sand with different CUC we put differently. If you just send me your percent sand, silt, clay, I'll be more than glad to calculate and send you. Okay? Yes.
How does it behave with like conventional chemical usage?
Say it again, please.
How does it behave with like conventional chemical usage?
Oh, how does it behave?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that I don't know how much with the chemical, you know what they do. Naturally, carbon try to balance the chemical. Is that right? What it will do when you put it depends on what you do. We assume, if I have done some work, we assume you have a pre-emergence herbicide. I'm just giving it. I did a humic with that. Actually, I want to be sure I don't have that there because it's going to decrease the efficiency of that pre-emergence. But when you have 2,4-D or Banvel, Dicamba, or glyphosate, it will. Those are two that we have documented synergize them because of chemistry. Other, they decrease. When we put those, I want to be put in a way, put earlier, whatever, so it doesn't create inefficiency. Well, actually, it enhances it, buffer. Many cases, we had a herbicide damage. I can write a book and I overcome that with like activated charcoal. You use that, it's a lot stronger than that. So that's what it do, is in 2 of those herbicides will do. On the actual insecticide, it's still there's not that much data, but they highly recommend don't put at the same time because it may decrease the efficiency. But depends on, some farmers say we mix, it just works, but I don't have the data. But collectively, when you do, especially with the herbicide, I know I tell, do earlier, apply your herbicide or fungicide and all that, except those 2 herbicides. Did I answer the question? Okay?
We go in the maintenance spot with filters, and no problem with that whatsoever. And I've always avoided the maintenance with herbicides, just out of fear. I've avoided mixing with herbicides, pre-rich herbicides, out of fear that we're going to buffer those and take away the effectiveness. But with imidacloprid, insecticide, no issues whatsoever.
Okay. I think my time is almost up. I don't want to be deported from here. I don't know, there's an immigration office here or whatever, but we'll.
Thank you much, Dr. Muir.
You're welcome.
There it goes, we're not running 2 mics. Here I had a lunch called this White Premium 21. I'm going to touch on some soil health things included with why we're excited about these biogrow products. So you've seen this before, you'll see it again after lunch, but the 3 pillars of regenerative farming: manage air and water in the soil, the pore space, manage residues, manage the crop fertility. So how do we boost fertility on your farm? What's your soil structure? Is it compacted? Is it platy? Is it loose? Do your roots tend to run lateral, or can they pour right down through that soil? So what's your soil structure? If the roots can't penetrate it well, then there's things that we can do to help that. How's your tilth? It's the coffee ground structure right on the surface. Do we have that loose, tilthy structure? Do you have biomass of or from life? Do we have biomass? Do we have a lot of organisms, microorganisms growing there? Or do we have a lot of biomass from life, meaning crop residues? All of that is an opportunity. Microbial active carbons, that's borrowing a term from the Rick Haney test. But if we have carbons out there that our microbes can use as a food source, can we use some kind of biostimulant to improve the microbial active portion of them? sometimes using molasses, sugars, etc. on residues, we can speed up the decomposition of them in a very beneficial way, as well as these humics. Is rapid residue degradation, is that important? We've been taught as farmers for years we want to preserve that on the surface of the soil. We're going to say that that's not the way to go at this thing. In the Midwest where we're at, if you're in the deep south in the heat, it's a different ballgame. But here in the Midwest, we have seen for decades that if we can break that residue down quickly, we create tilth, we create nutrient use efficiency, the soil improves, the crop improves, it's a good thing. So we want to use, and we do use natural occurring organisms, but we want to put them on steroids, so to speak. Put some biostimulants with them in order to speed them up so they do their work quicker, and we see very beneficial results from that. You've seen slides like this from us forever. NPK in nutrients, 220 bushel corn is around 100 pounds of nitrogen there to be mineralized out, 33 pounds of phosphate. The potash is pretty much going to come out anyway, but there's a lot there to be recycled. So residue decomposition, we're saying it's important, it's a key to creating that tilth that we're after. How do we view it? Just putting some different words to it that might trip some triggers within your own mind. But we want to accelerate the feast. If we've got a lot of crop residue out there, a lot of straw, a lot of corn stalks, it's going to break down. It's going to disappear over time. But if we can speed that up, we see beneficial results in the soil. So we want to accelerate that feast. That helps us to get ahead of the curve before planting. Dr. Muir was talking about immobilization, where you're tying nutrients up in the bodies of organisms. Mineralization is where those buds are releasing, where they're dying off, releasing the nutrients. It's critical that we not have tremendous immobilization at planting time, or we're going to stunt that crop. It's not going to do well coming out of the ground. So if we do these kinds of things, we can get ahead of the curve and accelerate and get to the point that we have net mineralization, more nitrogen being released than is being tied up by those organisms. Nitrogen fixing. Jerzy Novak years ago, one of our seminars, was sharing with us that if you have a lot of crop residue laying out there, you've got a lot of corn stalks, your nitrogen fixing organisms are going to populate at much higher levels. He threw out a number to us that the nitrogen fixers would be there at 1,000 times greater than if you didn't have a lot of residue laying there. So if there's residues to break down, we have some advantage in that we can get these nitrogen fixers to thrive because the soil needs them, which can pull nitrogen from the air and ultimately get it sequestered into the carbons in our soils. So in that regard, we can utilize more of that carbon. We're going to build the soil, we're going to aggregate it, we're going to reduce erosion if we can aggregate that soil, we're going to increase humus, we're going to improve that tilth, and we're going to improve the water holding capacity. Gary, give me a heads up when there's about 5 to go. See if we get through these. If you Google and look up humic things online, this Dr. Robert Pettit shows up a lot. He has written several papers and reviews of papers, so he assimilates lots of information. But he makes a statement, humic substances are recognized by most soil scientists and agronomists as the most important component of healthy fertile soil. We've kind of heard about that from the BioGrow folks here this morning. So this was in Barrow County, I don't know, a few years back, put up the residues, put them on in the fall, and within 30 days we saw that kind of decomposition happening. I mean, that's what we like. Not everybody's going to get that, you're not going to get that every time. But when you can get the residue to accelerate the decomposition to that extent, odds are you're going to have a different kind of soil to work with in the spring. This is common to see on the lower right when you treat fields where you'll see the center of that stalk hollowing out. The rind of the stalk, which is really tough, lots of lignins, it's going to degrade over time, but it's slower, but we'll really get after that cellulose, that soft part up the middle of the stalk. So in these plots, we went in and weighed residue from treated and untreated and proved out that we greatly accelerated the decomposition. It's actually done on Eric Johnston's farm, which is, he's sitting in the back here. That's it. So how's your pore space? Keep hammering on this. what's in a well-structured soil? 5% organic matter, 45% mineral, 25% water, 25% air. We've seen that probably hundreds of times, and it's just kind of boring stuff. But if you think with us a little bit here, that top statement, the root is the reflected image of the soil. We love to dig roots, look at how they're growing, where they're growing, and it tells us a lot. If they're growing laterally and they're only a few inches deep, they're not getting down through the soil, that tells us something. But think about that pore space. It's supposed to be 50%. Where are we at? What do we have? Most of us don't know on the farm, on the field-by-field basis. But if you walk it and think about it a little bit, you can figure it out in pretty short order. Does it feel like concrete or does it feel like walking on a sponge? Monty Thompson will show us some pictures in a video here after lunch where we change some soils very quickly. And we're seeing that more and more, I guess, as we get a little bit smarter about how we put these products and how we put these systems together. But think about that pore space, the aggregation. Good crumb structure has been calculated up to 9 square miles per square yard of soil surface. That's from a book from Henning, who's a German. They have about that 9 square miles per square yard of soil surface. And to take that to a whole nother level would be what Dr. Mears is representing here. Aggregation is one thing, but if I got it today, I think. I've heard him about 3 times now. But this goes beyond aggregation into the micropores and in nanometers, a whole different level. When we get the humics doing what we need them to do at high enough levels, I assume, that would totally dwarf that 9 square miles, I assume. Would that be a correct statement?
It will enhance, it get more.
Yeah, dramatically more than I assume.
I didn't want to confuse them. I had that, but I didn't want to state time. Yes, you're
Thank you. So the point is that this requires biotic engineering. If you're going to bring these aggregates together, it's a microbial process. The microbes put out polysaccharides, sticky stuff to help stick all these things together. And to increase pore space, we have to increase our aggregation. To get the aggregation, we have to treat the soil in a certain way to get there. So how do we do that? The biotic engineering. We're trying to get biologically created aggregates. We're trying to get water-stable aggregates that won't melt down if we get a shower of rain on them. So we need a community of organisms. We need bacteria, fungi, algae, nematodes, protozoa. We need all these good things working together in that soil community, in the soil food web, if you're used to that term, in order to make this go. So as we have gotten better over the years at getting the right biostimulants in the right places, that's really the ultimate goal, is to get a community of organisms working together. Many of the bacterias produce antibiotics and such. You can't have them working against each other. Those organisms are good, not saying they're not, but you can put together packages that will be somewhat antagonistic. We need those packages to be very synergistic with all of the organisms, all of that community working together, and then it's something special. So we want to convert that residue. We want that residue to go, to break into organic matter, looks a little bit different, ultimately into humus. If we can break our residue into humus, there's a real good chance your farm is going to be worth more money each and every year. Because if we can boost our humus content and have fresh humus in those soils versus maybe old organic matter, that's a good thing. And Dr. Muir hit on that. It was cool today too, on the 0.5% organic matter maybe has more biological activity than a 10% organic matter, depending on what that organic matter came from or how fresh it is. Would that be an accurate way to put it up?
Absolutely.
And that's a big deal. So to create the till, we may need to start that mechanically in order to break up the soils and create the pore space. If we have to do it mechanical, fine. If your soil is hard, if it feels like concrete, if you've got a plow pan, then putting some tillage to that to break it up is a great first step. But if we do that and we're going to spend the energy for the fuel, we need to do the things below it as well. We need to put some calcium nutrition on, that calcium that will flocculate the clays, get those clays to clump together. Then we need the biology in order to pull the larger particles, the clays and everything else together to make that aggregate that we can actually see with the naked eye. We need bulk carbon, so we need food source for the bugs. So we need some residue or manure or compost. All of those things can work very well. We need some soil cover perhaps, particularly if you're in a hot climate. We need to have that soil covered so that we can regulate temperature and moisture. So if we need to create that tilth, those bottom 4 points need to be on our minds as to what we need to do to make that happen. This is a wonderful picture. One of our fellows took years and years ago. We've got a corn on corn situation, corn on corn. So we've got old corn stalks laying here. We've got a new corn root growing. They tell us it takes about 24 hours to create a rhizosphere. So here we've got corn root coming out. That's probably 24 hours or less old. Up here we've got a rhizosphere. We've got the soil clinging to it. And look at the aggregation, that soil clumping together. You can see it in the picture. Down here we've got fungi. That corn stalk is painted white. We've got fungal activity. It's gathering up and pulling clays, sand, silts, organic matters, pulling everything together and creating aggregation. You can see it happening here as well. Literature tells us in order to get that to happen, you need near 100% humidity. And if you look, it's fascinating, you look with just like a 10x hand lens, when you see this going on, you look at that residue, you'll see little beads of water stacked in there on that residue, just side by side. So there is humidity. That fungal organism is creating a humid situation, pulling that water together so that it can live and thrive and do its thing for us. So there's a lot going on in that picture there that's kind of fun to think about. So biologically created aggregates. We need humus. We've heard about that today. If we have time, we'll have one more piece on it. Organic matter completely broken down is what we're talking about with the humic. Go from residue to organic matter, ultimately broken down into humus, that brownish black material that we see. Got the clay humus colloids, the mineral bridging. Dr. Muir talked about that. You get some chelating going on, tremendous boost in CEC, like this demonstration here. You know, the exchange capacity around the big ball versus all the small ones helps us to comprehend and understand how we can boost the cation exchange capacity and actually boost the anion exchange capacity as well as I understand it. Sticky charged humic bridging, he talked about. Something I was slow to come to learn. If you have something sticky, that means there's charges there. That's why it's sticky, because you have different charges. These products are really sticky. One of our growers in Florida on white sand, when he really got his soil humming, doing some of the things that's been talked about here today, put his hand down in that sand and it'd come out, it'd be black. There's enough humic material being structured, being made, sticking in that soil so that it actually would stain your hand. That's a really good situation if you're on pure sand. So we hold more nutrients. I threw old root channels on there. Over the years, we've done a lot of soil pits, and particularly at Princeton, when you get below the soil surface, you'll get into some yellow clays, and you'll see these black channels down through that clay where the corn roots were before, and then when that all breaks down, it turns into this brown, black, humic material that helps to aerate, does a lot of, everything we've talked about this morning. Root rhizosphere, you've heard us talk about that forever, where that soil comes in contact with the roots and where the biological activity is enhanced due to the root exudation coming out. We want to boost that. Most fields will be deficient, not all, but most. But we need to view that as one unit from our thoughts. You've got the plants, you've got the plant roots, you've got the carbon supply, the soil community, and this tilth we're talking about. And that all has to come together. If we're going to deepen our aerobic zone and boost the rhizosphere on our roots so that we get better nutrient use efficiency, you need all of that to come together. And we need to think about all those pieces and evaluate if you're missing something. Any one piece there probably isn't going to be overly successful. The nitrogen fixers, again, pulling nitrogen from the air to feed the crop is a big deal. Obviously, that's very efficient. That's going to work better if we get these rhizospheres really active. Then the other thing that's interesting is the constant turnover of the organisms and aggregates. The organisms, you've probably heard or read on how quickly some of their life cycles are. They're living, multiplying, and dying. When they die off, that's wonderful plant food. That's likely humus. There's nutrients released. And the same thing, these aggregates, these structures of soil that is much, much bigger than what just these organisms are. Those aggregates constantly are breaking down and being rebuilt as well. When they break down, you're going to get a release of nutrients. This is a really busy slide, ain't too much here, but I don't know if this will work with the speaker. We had, yeah, that's right, it's going to work. Up in that corner, talks about soil microaggregates, and Dr. Muir was talking about it. The microaggregates consisting of silt, clay, humus, iron, aluminum, lime, depending on pH and/or calcium phosphate. And the soil microaggregates are this size. So there's a bunch of those scattered. We're looking at a soil aggregate, one aggregate. So those red things tend to be the microaggregates, which is what Dr. Muir said we really, really want. If you're going to improve your soil, you need those. But look how many of those is scattered within that larger aggregate. These little specks represent bacteria. This is a root. Soil pore space, relative humidity 100%. So that's where we're going to hold moisture. There's a lot of information there, but the more I've looked at that, that comes to soil health and soil life. And you start to think about all the pieces in there if you read it all. If you want a copy, holler, get going. The sand, that's interesting. We think of sand being so much bigger than everything. These represent particles of sand within that aggregate. So that aggregate we can see with our naked eye that we really, really want has a whole lot of things going on in it. I think this is one of Ken's pictures from Iowa. When things work well, we see the soil get darker, and it can happen within weeks in the fields. Here, does it come through roll in the picture? This is treated soil that's darker than the untreated here. The other thing intriguing here is what those corn roots are doing. Spent quite a bit of time in eastern Ohio with a consultant that we've worked with. When we put the biology in with the fertilizers in the row supports, whether it be in furrow or 2x2, in that country that tends to have tight soils that are not in the greatest of shape, we'll see those roots pour right down through the compacted soils at those angles. Because the 35-degree angle or whatever they talk about is ideal. You can dig with a spade, you can dig with a knife, you can probe at it, you can tell there's compacted layers in that soil, that those roots will go right through it if you have other things in place working for you. And it comes back to those rhizospheres again. When the plant's putting out root exudates, the organisms are thriving, they're producing exudates. He used the term, which is dead on, he says it's like putting WD-40 on those roots when they hit a compacted area. They'll just punch right through it. And that changes soils. It improves those soils dramatically. This is one of his farmers. The control to the left, 1 gallon of SP1 at that time, now we're MVP, and 3 gallons. Look at the difference in the color of the soil. You can see it in the plants, you can see it in the ears. That was the first year of usage, put it on at planting time. You know, we got there digging, whatever that was, August, September, and seeing those kinds of differences. When you can change the soil from that color to that color, as farmers, I think we intuitively know we did something positive. 2021, we used this in the year of our COVID shutdowns. Dr. Stuart Grandy from University of New Hampshire thought I'd play this because he's taken this to one level we haven't really talked about here yet. So it's a 1.5 minute thing, and then we'll comment about it.
So where we used to think that it was the properties of the plant residues themselves and their resistance to decomposition that was the major driver of soil organic matter formation. We now know that it's a much more multifaceted process that involves the microbes and the microbial decomposition of soil organic residues, and then the production of microbial dead bodies. And so what this means is that It's the microbial traits, such as how fast do they grow? How large is that microbial population? How efficient is the microbial population? In other words, how much of the food that the microbes eat do they convert to biomass versus releasing to the atmosphere as CO2? These become the critical features of soil organic matter and determining how much soil organic matter we have. And so the plant residues still matter. They matter just as much. They are still the ultimate source of all the carbon going into the soil. But it's less about the plant residues themselves becoming soil organic matter, but their impact on the microbial community and the microbial growth traits, such as growth efficiency, growth rate, and microbial biomass.
Should have prefaced that maybe a little more. Dr. Grandy, we met him, then he spoke to our group via Zoom. His group was looking at trying to identify what is humus. If you dig into the literature, there's been arguments forever, I guess, on what is humus. Is it just partially broken down residue? Here in the upper Midwest, where we come into winter, when we start to break down residue and then the winter shuts us down, that residue lays in a little different format. Is it pieces of coal? There's an argument as to what it is. And we had observed for pretty much forever throughout our company life that when you get this residue breaking down quickly, you end up with a different result. The soil's in a better shape. So what really intrigued us with what he's talking about with his students and his studies was he says humus is dead microbial bodies. He says it's that plain, that simple. And that's a pretty big statement. So how do you accomplish more of that? If we test soils for organic matter and we're picking up organic matter that's been laying there for a year, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, that's one thing. But if we get humus formation and that's fresh, that's plant fertility. And that's plant fertility now. So we're not just talking about organic matter, but we're talking about that humus. And obviously this morning, we've been hearing about a way we can put liquid humus out there in a way that's different from what we've ever done before. Because of the pH of this product, we can put it with our acid fertilizers, particularly the organic folks, where we'd like to be able to put it in with the organic fish type blends. With this product, we can do that. So I think it can help jumpstart what we've got going on. It can sustain us year to year. If we want to plant early, there's benefits. There's a lot of things that we can do with that. But if you accept that humus is dead microbial bodies, then all of this kind of comes together, that when we're trying to feed the soil, break down the residue, inoculate those rhizospheres, utilize the carbon that's coming out of the carbon exudates of the plant, all of this kind of starts to come together, and we can see where the microbial active carbons are that can feed the biology, that can greatly enhance our nutrient use efficiency. So different opportunities, how to do that in the fall. We love it if you can put a little calcium on each and every year. We know it's not always practical, but we need to consider it. Along with tillage, inoculate the crop with organisms. Then if you do cover crops, that enhances it better. If we do a cover crop after our cash crop and continue to pump root exudates into that soil, obviously that's a really good situation. In the spring, like it if we can use some calciums if it can work. Fertilize that crop, make sure we've got a healthy crop. That crop has to be healthy in order to do its job capturing the sun, to do its growth, and put root exudates out. Inoculate those rhizospheres. Our mycoseed treat, the MVP, will be on the seed or in furrow in order to get the organisms there to get them started. Then we need to feed them, and then monitor that tilth. During the summer growing seasons, we need to make sure we're feeding the crop, make sure it's healthy, monitor the tilth of the soil. If we don't have tilth in the soil, is there still time to do something about it, or do we need to rethink what we're going to do the next season? We've seen these roost just all the things that these humic substances go. So the liquid humic products that we can apply with the fertility that we're going to apply in the spring. And obviously, if we have new humus being formed in the soil, we've got some trickle effect of all these things going too. Out of this paper, there's like 32 things listed that are the advantages, and Bruce covered a lot of those, and Dr. Muir spoke about it as well. So there's many agronomic applications, but the no-brainer is the characteristic to greatly improve nutrient availability, and the fortification, which in Premium 21 gives us a humic acid that's fortified to even enhance that even further. So obviously we're pretty excited to integrate this product going forward. And that's my last slide.
Yeah.
So if there's any questions, otherwise we're headed to lunch.
Any quick questions for Dean here?
What's the difference between the Premium 21 and your SP1?
The SP1 is live organisms. They're in a dormant state, depending on how fresh it is, but it's live organisms. The Premium 21 is humic material, as I've talked about. It's humic acids along with some amino acids. It's more than that, but I think in the crude sense. So yeah, apples and oranges, but very synergistic. I guess to borrow his term, they should marry up really well.
So you use both of them? Or?
Yes. Yeah, you bet. Yeah, I used the SP1 MVP type product to inoculate the rhizosphere, to accelerate decomposition of the residues. The humic acid will help us with soil characteristics and provide food to support those organisms.
One more. One of the speakers made a comment about plowing down cover crops. How, for organic, how do you feel cover crops?
Excuse me?
For organic, how do you feel a cover crop?
How to use cover crops? Oh, how to kill cover crops. Oh, that's up to the farmer. Yeah. Boy, there's a lot of different ways. Yeah. Whatever you can do to make it work in your system. Yeah. Do you need to get them out of the way so you can run a tine weeder, or if you're not doing a tine weeder, if you're doing a hoe, can you live with it? Yeah. I'm not even gonna go there.
Yeah, and actually this afternoon we'll be showing some different pictures of some tools and different concepts too, so that might help answer that a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
Just whatever works for your farm and for that next crop. That's a big deal to get that right. No doubt about that. Anything else?
all right. I think, well, Dan's carrying food out, so that's a good sign. I think he's almost there, but we are, Ken Musselman, who, when we were at first here doing introductions, Ken was a little delayed and wasn't here yet, but Ken has been on our staff for many years, and he's going to lead us in a word of prayer.
Please pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us. We thank you for the opportunity to gather together, to learn from each other, to share ideas. And Lord, we come seeking wisdom, how to be better stewards of the soil, but also of the time and talents and other resources that you've entrusted us with. And Lord, as we learn about your creation, we marvel at the complexity, and as we think about the complexity of creation, we marvel at the Creator. And we think what kind of a Creator that you are. We marvel that you would want to have a personal relationship with each one of us, yet we know you do, and we thank you for that. Lord, just now we thank you for the food we're about to eat. We ask that you would bless it to our bodies and bless the hands that prepared it. Lord, we also ask that you would bless our crops in this coming growing season. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, so as soon as the food is ready, we can go and get something to eat. It's steak, so I hope you like steak. If not, there's a Subway up the street. Steak's better, I'm sure. We will try to start again right at 1 o'clock promptly, and we will try to wrap up here at about 3 o'clock, and then after that, there'll be an opportunity to go tour Early Bird for anyone who has not seen it before, and it'll be your chance to see what they're doing there. So we will try to keep things moving this afternoon, so we have a chance to do that. But with that, let's go ahead and grab something to eat. Maybe Dan has instructions here. Yeah, the front row goes first actually, but that's just Clint and I, so. Okay. Stan is next. Yep.